Don't get me started. I mean, me
Yeah.
and Rickman have gone on our like AI rants and shit, and
Dude,
but
that's coming a lot faster than you think too.
oh,
I mean, it's gonna be here within like 5 years. So
well,
I,
yes,
I I
that,
think
but
your drawing series is actually like prophetic in a lot of ways.
oh, well,
Where
thank you.
where I'm like, geez, a soothsayer. It's like he's seeing into the future. It's gonna be like a documentary in like 3 years. It's like G Terado saw into the future. He knew it. He knew it was coming.
Who would
Yeah,
have
like
thought? Who
who
would
would
have
have
thought this
who would
guy?
who would have thought, this guy here, fucking saw into the future.
What's up, everyone? Welcome to another episode of Rated G. I'm your host, G Terado. If you are new here, welcome to the show. This is an art podcast where I sit down with fellow artists, crafters, creators, and we just sit down, shoot the shit, and talk about art and life. So if you enjoy this content, please be sure to hit that follow and subscribe button. And also ring the notification bell. That way you can keep up with all the new releases. And if you check out the show notes, you will see the links leading to our social media in case you want to continue to follow us outside the podcast. And for those of you who are coming back to the show, welcome back and thank you for your continued support. And also, if you haven't already, please subscribe to the podcast, especially on YouTube. I've been a little more active on my channel, and it seems I've been gaining more subscriptions on there. So yeah, do all the good stuff there, and let's go. Joining me on this episode is no stranger to the podcast. He's been here multiple times. We've even done some group episodes, and yeah, he's an artist that I've been looking up to since probably like almost 10 years now. And yeah, so please welcome back the one and only Nick Mockoviak. What's up, brother?
Oh man. Well, I just finished the first week of
going on. Oh shit.
Yeah, I figured I had to look like an adult or like a dad now. It also hides the fact that I'm getting fatter, so it helps to kind of hide that a little bit.
Actually,
Well,
I don't.
what's funny. What's funny. This whole summer, I ran, and like last year, like I ran actually more this summer than I did last summer, but I didn't lose any weight. I didn't gain anything either. I stayed consistent. Although last year I was actually 10 pounds lighter. So it's just like,
well,
yeah, it's like
maybe you're sorry to interrupt you. Maybe you're building muscle, man. Like muscle weighs more than fat.
That's what I keep telling myself.
No,
that's what I keep telling myself. But no, it's just it's just kind of like maybe like probably overindulging, in certain things. Like that's why like this is a treat because because right now, like, it also just sucks just like having like the night sweats at like 2 a.m. and like, I'm like, no, I'm like, I need to be more of an adult and just like more of like an actual responsible adult that has a human in the world and another one on the way.
Yeah.
It can't be like 3 sheets to the wind. And the wife's like, all right, it's time to go. Like, well, what? So it's just little things like that of just like, cut it back a bit, like, it's not the end of the world. Like this week, it's like, plus it was beginning of school. So like I was like razor sharp because this week I'm like, it's been a week, feels like a year. Like, is it June already? No. All right, fine. We'll move on. So it's been, it is what it is.
That seems to be the general consensus from other teachers that I'm connected with, seeing their posts, after the school day. Well, first and foremost, congratulations again on your second pregnancy. I mean, look, right? I can only see you from the chest up, but you look good.
So, thank you.
Yeah, man. Sure. But yeah, you know what? I mean, well, I feel like you and I are, I mean, not close in age, but I mean, I think we only got like a few years between
Yeah,
us. We're just at that point now where
it gets harder.
it just gets harder, and
Yeah,
it just from here on, it's really maintenance. And I think when
yeah,
I mean, you know what you're putting your body through now, and
yeah.
I'm sure I would think, I don't know. Well, I really can't say it because I'm not you, but
Hmm.
I mean, again, right? If you don't feel, I mean, how do you feel in terms of what the weight scale says? Because if you feel good, I mean, that's
Yeah, that's what it is. Like, well, it's funny because a few weeks ago, because I mean, I paused the running because like I got tired of waking up at 4:45 in the morning to run because I was running at 5 a.m. because I don't like running in the heat. I had heat exhaustion like 20 years ago. I don't really do too well when it's like hot and muggy, which has been this whole summer here in New Jersey.
yeah.
So even running at 5 a.m., it's 75 degrees. The
Mhm.
humidity is 100%. And the dew point, which is people don't realize, that's why it feels so sticky, is the dew point. That's how much, like, how saturated the air is. The dew point's 72 degrees. That's like New Orleans swamp ass, disgusting. Like anything like in the like 60 degrees and up for a dew point is disgusting.
Mm.
So I'm running at 5 a.m. It's me and the deers and the wild turkeys up here and the foxes in the road, right? And I'd come back after a 30-minute run and I would take my bandana off and I would just wrench out about 2 pounds of sweat. That's just from 30 minutes,
Yeah, yeah.
which is up for me like 3 miles. I'm about a 10-minute mile, right?
Right.
And so the one day I came back from my run, and I think I did like about 4.5 miles.
Mm.
So I got on the scale and it's like about quarter to 6 and it said like 187. I'm like, that seems kind of wrong. I went back on it like 3 hours later. I was 183. I'm like, whatever, fuck this. Like scales
Well,
are
right calibrated.
yeah, scales are all, like that's why I'm like, you can't always rely on the scales. There's another thing too. We have like one of those Weight Watcher digital scales. So you put in like your height and your age,
Okay.
right? So, and it tells you like your body fat percentage and your bone mass and your water weight and all that. So I updated the scale the one year from like 33 to 30. Like I had turned 35 at the time, and magically I gained like 5 pounds just from
Yeah.
changing the number for my age. I'm like, that seems a little off. Like
Yeah.
2 minutes ago, I was I was just 5 pounds lighter. So yeah, be careful about stuff like that.
Yeah.
That's why like I go by the number, but I also don't go by the number as much.
Mhm.
So like I do, but honestly, I look at myself at pictures of myself from like this time last year. I'm like, damn, I looked really good. Like I was like, because I was felt, I was trim, I
Mm.
looked good. You know, now the beard hides a lot, but that's a secret, my friends. You have to grow
Well,
just enough of a beard because if it gets too bushy, then you look like you're lost in the mountains somewhere.
I don't know. I feel like right now, at least what you've got going on, I feel like it kind of defines your jawline a little more.
Yeah, because if
It's
you
the outline. It's like an
right,
outline.
right. But if it gets to be because like I had it over the summer where I looked homeless.
Yeah.
So you have to keep it at a certain length, otherwise it starts to look too unkempt.
Yeah.
So
I also feel like when guys like start really growing out those burly beards, like I feel like it makes their face look fatter, actually. I
it
feel like
does.
and I don't know, yeah. But I mean, hey, like I say, you look good, and hey, as long as you feel good. I mean, I get obsessive with numbers too. Like I
Mhm.
track everything. And well, I mean, I don't track calories anymore. I kind of just
Mhm.
go intuitively. But I think just when you consider, if you're eating relatively healthy, you're not, I mean, I self-indulge too. Like I know, like in my posts, in my workout posts and stuff, I'm like trying to be, motivational and this and that. But I self-indulge. I don't just have a cheat meal. I have like cheat days. Like if I have a
Mhm.
craving, I'm one of those types where if I have a craving and I easily crave things. Like I'll see a commercial or an ad, or someone will mention something, or I hear a conversation about food, and I'm like, fuck. But yeah, I self-indulge, frequently. And as long as you just put in the work. Um, but hey, I'm happy to hear, at
Yeah.
least you're still going out there and getting it in somehow.
Yeah, I'm looking to switch to like do more weightlifting over the fall and winter, because again, like one thing like I'm not too thrilled about is like I physically have gotten weaker,
Mm,
and I'm like that's not good, like no matter, like, yes, I'm getting older, like I'll be 39 in January. I'm like
mm,
that's not good, especially with a 2-year-old that wants to run around and wants to be healthy all the time,
yeah.
and with another daughter on the way in November,
Mm.
like I don't want to be like the fat lazy dad who's like, all right, daddy can't do anything. Like daddy will go hiking with you, and daddy will, we'll go run around and play, but that's partially like, all right, taking care of myself, for my family, but also like for vanity. Like I want to look good too. I mean,
Of course. Of course.
like, little selfishness. I'm like, yeah, I would like to be somewhat defined. Like I don't need to be ripped and torn, but
You want to look like you're taking care of yourself, and there's
yeah,
nothing wrong
right.
with that at all.
But I'll so I often get told I look younger than I am, but I get told I act older than I am too. So it's like a balance, right? It's a balance. They're like, you're such an old man. Like, how are you like 38, but you feel like you talk like you're 78, but you look like you're 28. So the the one lady in my school who does latchkey, which is like, what latchkey is?
Oh, I feel like I should know what it is.
It's like the
Hear it.
after school program that like the kid, like the parents can't pick them up because they're working, so the kids stay at the school
Okay.
or whatever.
Okay.
So um so I worked in my building now. This is my 12th year there. This lady has worked latchkey the entire time I've worked there. Okay. 12th year. Okay. At the end of last school year in June, right? I'm repainting the mural in the front lobby, and she's complimenting me on the mural. Looks great, and I'm just like, yeah, it's fine. Like, just ignore it. Like, I'm trying, like, leave me the fuck alone. I'm trying to paint. Like, I'm trying to not fuck this up, right? And you're blabbing like right here about the goddamn clouds. I'm like, yeah, clouds are great. Go fuck off, right? And the next morning she comes in and she's like, she sees my hand. She goes, "You're married?" I said, "Yeah, I've been married for 10 years." "You've been married for 10 years? Do you have any children?" I'm like, "I have a 2-year-old." "Oh, how old are you?" And I said, "I'm 38." She goes, "Oh, I thought you were like 27."
Hey, there you
I
go.
mean, that's great, but I'm like, lady, I've worked here the whole time. You've worked here. You've talked to me every year that I've worked here. Did you think I started here at like 17?
Wow.
What crack are you on? Why aren't you sharing it? You know, like it boggles my mind with things like that, of like the perception of some people. But like it's nice, yeah, to get those compliments from people of like, yeah, you look so much younger. You act younger too. I'm like, well, when you work with 7-year-olds who think you're sus and tell you to stop capping, and your artwork's mid, you keep up with all this shit, and you're like, what the hell? What the fuck are you talking about? And I so then, to make it even better, over the summer I was doing a lot of camps. Like, oh my god, I was just working my ass off this summer.
Mm.
Like, the school year ended on June 17th, and then like June 21st in Richmond started, and that ran for 4 weeks, and did another camp for 2 weeks with teens. And with the teens, like, I was telling them, I'm like, so I'm looking at the drawings. I'm like, the drawings look mid. And they would look at me like, what did you say? I'm like, you heard me. Your drawing's mid. That's no cap either.
Oh.
And I'm like, see, it's stupid when I say it. So stop saying that shit. Like, that's the point. It's dumb.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to go off on a tangent about it, but I really, I mean, I think it's inevitable, but
It's all TikTok and Discord.
well, I really think this time around it just seems really annoying with these new terms and the new slang. I mean, we come up with slang. I mean, it's what we do, but I
Mhm.
don't know. Maybe it's just this generation in particular, but like it's just I don't know.
There's a lot to be worried about for the future.
Oh no, I know. Don't get me started. I mean, me
Yeah.
and Rick Man have gone on our like AI rants and shit, and
Dude,
like,
that's coming a lot faster than you think too.
oh,
I mean, it's gonna be here within like 5 years. So
well, yes,
I
that,
think
but
your drawing series is actually like prophetic in a lot of ways.
oh well,
Where
thank you.
where I'm like, Jesus, soothsayer. It's like he's seeing into the future. It's gonna be like a documentary in like 3 years. It's like G Terado saw into the future. He knew it. He knew it was coming.
Who
Yeah,
would have
like
thought?
who would have
This
who would
guy?
who would have thought? This guy here, fucking saw into the future. It's so weird. So
Uh,
yeah, when I texted you and I was listening to the one that was it one episode 131, I was like, oh, let me listen to like something randomly here. And I was listening to it. I'm like, man, there's a lot of things like we're on the same wavelength about. And I have entertained the thought when I text you, I'm like, just to leave it out of blank, like just listen to this episode and not put anything else there, just have you
yeah.
sweat it out for a bit. But then I'm like, no, that's too dick of a move. I'm like, nah, like we're on the same wavelength. So
Well, when you did that, I'm not.
you
Well,
got worried, right?
I did because
It was a hot topic. I know.
well, not only that, but then just thinking about because like when anytime someone says, oh, I listen to the podcast, I automatically worry about like my performance, like
Mm-hmm.
I get very self-conscious about the way my speech and this and that, so I
Right.
really try to tune that a little bit more without losing myself completely, because I do feel like the way I speak is unique, you get a little more of my personality. But when you did like kind of leave that
Leave me.
cliffhanger, I was like he's either gonna say I was like he's gonna like disagree with me something. I don't know, I just had this feeling you were gonna like really disagree with me on something, and I'm like, oh, well, what I'm like, what did I do wrong?
No.
My initial reaction, I'm like, what did I do?
No, because I thought about the like, no, that's just wrong. That's wrong on many levels. Like that's cruel. That's cruel and unusual punishment. I actually wrote things down because I was like, I'm gonna forget all this stuff.
Okay, well, before we get into that, let me just real quick kind of go back to like I'm not going to turn this into like a fitness podcast, but I do want to praise you and say, hey, man, I think it's awesome that you're taking care of yourself, of course, but more so that you want to take care of yourself for your family. Because I have so many friends that have kids now and I get it, right? It's hard to, sometimes it's hard to really find that window of time for yourself and take care of yourself on all those aspects. But, I don't know. It's again, who am I? I'm not a parent, I'm a cat dad, if anything, but I do believe when they're like, not to sound corny, but when there's a will, there's a way. And and if there's a purpose, especially, I always tell people, find your reason why, whether it's for yourself, for someone else, for your kids or nieces, if you want to just inspire the youth, like all those things. I mean, and I've not that I'm proud of it, but I've used this tactic of, whenever my friends who have kids that are parents, they're like, it's so hard because this and that and the other. I'm like, look, man, like do it for your kids. Like you want to be around for your kids, right? You want to set an example, because I mean, we are in this age where people are praising obesity, and
we'll get into a lot of that, believe me.
Yeah, well, yeah. And you know what I will say, because by the time this episode goes out, the previous one, which I had a good friend of mine in Luanda, Angola, and that one's like, it's a long ass episode, but man, we were like, I really think we hit some really great topics about these things right now, because I was like really curious on how much of what we're dealing with here in the US is happening in Angola, in terms of like the whole, fat phobia, the gender pronouns and stuff. Because I'm like, yo, it's like
probably like non-existent,
Well, he said
or it's different.
Slowly, it's just they're behind. Like they're not, like I'm like, because like words in other languages have gender. So I'm like, how does that is that gonna fuck with your, how?
Well, G, you have to understand. Me being a cisgendered white man, being basically being the devil, and the reason why you are suffering so much, and why we are the root cause of everything. We feel we have to overcorrect ourselves to make sure that we are fixing things that we shouldn't be fixing. We have no business fixing, but because we feel the inherent white guilt, we have to fix it for you.
Yeah, and
that's why.
And I'll just, this will be the last thing I mentioned from this that podcast, is that he was like, and he wasn't being a dick about it, but he's like, it's like, like Americans, like, he was like, you guys really don't know shit about the rest of the world. I'm
no,
like,
we don't.
I know.
We don't.
Yeah. So I'm like, it's just kind of funny how these people tend to overcorrect and overdo things. But yeah. But anyway,
it's weird how like we feel like we have to tell people in other countries how to live.
Yeah, and also like even like each other here. It's like, I don't know, it's just
it's a very, I have to say this. It's actually a wonderful thing that we have the problem of addressing people by whatever pronoun they prefer, instead of like worrying about, I don't know, famine and death and war and rampant poverty. I think it's, and it's not to demean anyone who who is gender fluid and blah 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 blah, whatever, because the mob will come after you.
Yeah.
But it's a wonderful, that is actually a wonderful problem to have, where like you have to really, where you're basically inventing problems because, and yes, I understand that there are, there's a spectrum of wealth in the United States, but I mean, as a whole, I think the poorest person in the United States is probably living better than the richest person in the United States, to 150 to 200 years ago.
Yeah.
Like their life expectancy is a lot longer. So like you're not, risking, for a lot of these people, you're not risking dysentery, you're not risking, pestilence, you're not risking, having a fucking cannonball shot into your chest fighting a civil war.
Yeah.
Like what you're saying with the podcast, and it's funny how when you're talking about like how like you are with linguistics and words of like you're trying to say a point, I'm like, he's gonna stick the landing on this one. He's gonna say the right words. It's like, oh, he almost made it. No, he didn't. So, he didn't do it. I'm like, but I can see what you're trying to say, because you were talking about the people with the animal videos, which I've actually seen. Like, I'm a sloth and I do this, right? And that dumb shit, right? We've seen those before. And when you're talking about that, and then later on, like talking about the away piece you're doing, they tied in so well together of like, we are this simulation society and culture. We want the simulation of reality. We don't want the actuality of it. We want to go into the metaverse and pretend like, we're in a war. We don't actually want to be in a war. We don't want to be a soldier, because that comes with baggage. That comes with actually deciding whether you're going to kill someone or not, or like pretending to be in shape without actually having to go on a diet and exercise, and put in the hard work. Like, we're a very voyeuristic, passive society. We like to watch. We like to critique. We like to comment. We don't want to get our hands dirty, though. We like to keep our safe distance and speak from, the armchair quarterback, speak from the shadows. We don't like to actively get engaged, because that actually means commitment. And we don't really want that. We kind of want, it's like you want the rewards without the work. That's what we're doing now. And we are talking about that video of like, and those of that ilk. It's like, you want the simulation of like an animal attack, but you don't actually, not that you want actually one animal attack, right. But yeah, when you see actual animals attacking each other, it's brutal. Fucking brutal. I'm sure you saw the video that Joe Rogan posted months ago of like, I think it was a monkey like beating the shit out of a bird or something.
Oh yeah,
In a zoo,
yeah.
right? And that's nature. Like, yeah, that shit happens, like that's the reality. Nobody likes that. They like the superficiality of everything. They like the surface level. They don't like to go too deep, because God forbid you go too deep and you actually start finding out some things. It gets scary. It gets murky.
Yeah.
And then when you're talking about your away piece of just like the person in the chair and the people critiquing, I felt it's so connected in so well of like, here are these people disconnected from this person by how like by miles and or oceans and power cords and wires and everything, commenting on something they have no business commenting on, but they feel like they had to be part of the conversation, and that's what we want. Like, we want the participation award. We want to be involved, but we don't actually want to get involved. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, there's this, watching a video before about all this ruckus with all the fandoms, like Lord of the Rings, MCU, like the whole mess.
Oh yeah.
And people were in one of the points that one of the people were saying is people like being in a fandom, but not actually fans of the thing in the fandom. Like, for example, people love the MCU, but don't want to read the comic books that the MCU is based off of. Or it's like people like, they want to be involved with like, oh, I like, Godzilla, but I don't want to watch the other Godzilla movies or like other kaiju movies or King Kong or, Ray Harryhausen films. Like, nobody wants to really get too deep. It's like, oh, I just like the new shiny thing right now. I want the shiny thing. And that's it. Like, oh, look at shiny thing. And then once that starts to luster, here's the next shiny thing. And that's what people want. They like the community, but they don't want to really dig into it. They don't want to really understand what it's about.
Yeah.
And that's what I think, like, going to what you're saying, like, that's where we are now. Like, we like the surface level stuff.
Yeah.
We don't like getting too deep and making actual personal humanistic connections that you actually might feel something, because then you might get hurt, and you can't get hurt. If you get hurt, now we gotta now big pharma is gonna put you on a pill the rest of your life, instead of actually exercising or dieting or talking to friends or watching porn or whatever.
I actually think it's kind of like, I mean, I'm agreeing with everything you're saying right now, and I also feel it's actually kind of funny that how people are with that. Yet when it comes to like, I've been like really into comedy right now, and more so just because it helps me kind of keep sane, like, because I am the type that tends to really try to look on both sides. Like, I stay in the neutral best I can, so I don't fucking start wars or anything. But I think it's funny
you milk toast fence sitter. Welcome to the club. Welcome to the club.
But when it comes to jokes, people immediately like identify and attach themselves with every little like thing, and it's like, dude, it's like, it's a fucking joke. And there are some people that might actually be living that life of whatever the punchline is, and it's like they're I'll just say like 90% of the time they're fucking laughing too. It's like, so it's just I think it's funny how people tend to flip-flop in that manner, where it's like, oh, like, don't, like, they become real fucking social justice worry when it comes to like fandom and all the comic books, movies, and all that. But when it comes to the comedy, it seems like no, like, they just, I don't know, they fucking lose it, but
I mean, yeah, look at like, Dave Chappelle was, torn down, over his trans joke. One of the comedians really liking is Ali Sadiq.
Oh my God, I know that name.
He's got the prison riot story. Mexican got on boots.
I'm just gonna have to look him up real quick because it's
fucking hysterical. Or like, yeah. I saw the reason why I saw it because
Okay.
I saw it because he was a clip with Joe Rogan talking about how he learned about like honor through pimps fighting. I'm like, this is gonna be good, you know. And like he is such a great storyteller.
Yeah.
Oh man, I fell down that rabbit hole for like hours just watching Ali Sadiq stuff, the Mitchell story, and just how like he has such a way of like like telling about his life, which could be like tragic, like telling his father, like telling how he like when growing up with his father, like he said, like when he was a kid, he didn't realize his dad was a drug dealer.
Oh yeah.
And like his dad rubbed cocaine on his gums or his teeth for this toothache. You're like, holy fuck.
Actually, speaking of comedians, are you aware or a fan of Tim Dillon?
Oh yeah. I like Tim Dillon.
We got to see him live here, and oh my god, I was fucking dying. And then I watched this special, and even though I knew, when the punchlines were coming, because we got to see him live, still so funny.
Yeah.
In the special, I think it's called A True Hero. It's on Netflix.
I have to check it out. Like,
check it out. I think you'll really enjoy it. If you and I have that same taste in comedy, I think you'll really enjoy it.
Yeah. I mean, when I was younger, here in New Jersey, New Brunswick, there was a Stress Factory comedy club. John and I used to go to that all the time. Like we would always go when Brewer would go because Jim would go to warm up for his special. So he would be there a couple nights. Yeah. So you got to see like a lot of that raw material before it ended up being the special.
Yeah.
And like watching Jim Brewer just go nuts, no special. It's just him for like 2 hours, just unhinged. It was fucking amazing because he was just because he's just trying shit and like, like doing bits that were like, popular, like he had done before, but it's just like working out things that, he was just kind of like seeing what would work. I saw Nick DiPaolo there. I saw Charlie Murphy there.
Oh, wow. Nice.
Yeah, that was cool. And it was also a little, yeah. Fuck your couch.
Yeah, that's awesome. You got
and it was like me and John we were the only salt. We're like, yeah, try Murphy. But I mean, everyone was, it was great, like because no one gave a shit that we were just like the two white dudes there. It was great. And we saw a bunch of other people there too, throughout the years.
It's a great atmosphere, man.
It is, I think like a 2-drink or 2-item minimum, you have to do. The bathroom is always sucked there. But I mean, yeah, it was cool. Like the food was good, a little overpriced, but that's how it is for a comedy club. But I mean, there's nothing like seeing, like live comedy, live music, there's nothing just like feeding off that energy and just everyone's there for the same reason, And also with the Stress Factory, like I don't know, like if you have a comedy club in your area or whatever, but they'd have like the in-house TVs, and they would always, like the camera would turn to you and would put it would like focus you on the camera and put a caption like small dick or something like that. And then you would laugh, ha ha ha. And then like this one's a virgin, like just very baseline humor. Wow. But it was like, it's funny,
Wow.
So
yeah, there's a couple here. There's the Richmond Funny Bone, which we're gonna actually be going there tomorrow night to see Mark Norman. I don't know if you're familiar with that name.
I've heard the name, yeah.
But then there's a new club, somewhat new club called Sandman, and then there's another Funny Bone, I think, in Virginia Beach. So yeah, especially I just think like even more so these times, I really feel like it's important to get out there and like submerge yourself in that space and really just have a laugh, and like because you are in there, you're all together.
Yeah.
All the fucks are out the door. You can all laugh at all the fucked up shit together.
Yeah, you got to laugh at yourself too. You can't take yourself too seriously.
Yeah,
a lot of these people do. That's just a terrible thing.
I was telling Rick, I want a little while back when like the whole thing in Ukraine was happening, and he was like getting all stressed out. And I'm like, dude, man, you know what? do yourself a favor and like, I don't know, see if there's like any comedy shows going on or something. Like, yeah, it's like just put yourself in that space where you can just have a laugh and just be worry free, because laughter is a medicine. I believe that.
Yeah, oh, yeah, absolutely. Another comedian I'm really liking, I think her name's Taylor Tomlinson.
Oh yeah,
She's
she was here
fantastic.
recently.
She's fantastic. I mean, just the way she tells and delivers her jokes, and just the way she like her material at all, it's so good. It's so well done, because after like watching like Amy Schumer specials, I'm like, oh my god, this is not funny.
Maybe caught the jokes that she stole,
which is a lot of them. Yeah. But it's funny how like it's all in the presentation too, like just the way like presenting the jokes and just making sure like they man, when they hit. I mean, she's great too. I mean, she's gonna be a superstar, hopefully.
Oh, yeah.
Because she deserves it, And like honestly, I'm hoping Ali Sadiq really hits big too, because that motherfucker deserves it. I mean, he is probably. I have to go and explore more comedians again, but he's probably like my number one right now as far as because he's fucking funny.
Yeah, there's a lot of them, and I think and I really have to say, at least for me, I'm thankful that podcast is a thing, because now you really get to see the insights, you get to hear the comics talk about the process and all that. Like I love doing it. I mean, that's why I do the podcast, so we talk about our processes. But
yeah,
it really, I've always enjoyed comedy, but then I truly respect it even more now that I kind of know the lifestyle of a stand-up comedian. And there's so many great comedians. Like it's just wild that there's like a lot of people that have been in the game for so long, and now they're popping up, and it's wild. Like some of them have been doing it for like 15-20 years, and now they're really starting to get the recognition. I mean, granted, now you got social media and all that, but even still, it's like oh shit, there's a lot of great comics right now. So
yeah, and especially like we have like YouTube, you can just sit and watch. I mean, oh my god, oh my god, I'm blanking on his name right now. Akash Singh.
Oh yeah. Oh, did you watch it?
Yeah, I did. I watched it. It is bring back Apu.
Yes, right? Thank you.
Oh my god,
that was great.
He did it, because just catching him on flagrant with Andrew Schultz. Sometimes Andrew Schultz can be a little bit of a dick. He's funny, but it's like sometimes it's like, all right, I get it. You're a New Yorker. Shut the fuck up,
Yeah. Also, there's like too many of them. I kind of tend to stay not stay away, but I stay away from some podcasts that are like crowded like that, because there's just so much going on, especially if they're gonna bring on guests. Now there's like 5 of them, and especially with that one in particular, I always feel bad for the guests. They always because they got 2 people on each side, so they're always like
they have like the oh my god, I always forget Al and Mark, right? Are the other 2 that are just like the producer and like the whatever?
Oh yeah, I don't know the other guys.
It's like they're kind of like the straight foils to Akash and Andrew. Yeah, Akash especially was hysterical. Yeah, and that's like the beauty of it now, where like back in the day, like because I used to watch Comedy Central all the time when it was actually funny. And like when it was actually all about comedians and comedy, right? And like we would watch the half-hour specials on there, and like that's where like you would see like a lot of these comedians, and you're like, oh, they're going to the Strax Factory. Oh shit, yeah, I'll go fucking see these guys. And back in the day, like to be a comedian, to make it big, you had to be on Saturday Night Live, right? You had to be on like the Tonight Show with Johnny Carson or Jay Leno, or on David Letterman. Had to have a sitcom, or like have an HBO special. Then it was like Comedy Central, like the stepping stone to that. Now, I mean, Netflix is just pissing away money to anyone, with that tells somewhat of a joke. You got YouTube for, I guess, TikTok for what it's worth. I don't know. I'm not really a fan of the clock app for many different reasons. But Yeah, like that's one thing with being a creator, being an artist, whether you're like us, visual artist, musician, comedian, actor, actress, animator. It's wonderful that there's so many avenues and venues, but a lot of shit gets funneled through as well. And it makes it so much harder.
Yeah.
Like one of the things I wanted to mention, was deviant art, right? So I didn't realize this. I've been on deviant art for 17 years.
Ooh,
I was like, oh shit. Oh my God. I mean, honestly, I've like, because I'm like, all right, I should probably, because one of the things you learn being an educator is that parents will Google you. And they Google me and they find my work on DeviantArt. And luckily it's, it's just my drawings or whatever. And I'm like, oh my God, you're an actual artist. I'm like, yeah. So we're going to leave it at that. I'm like, oh, why do you do art for a living? Yeah, about that. About that.
Yeah.
So you want to explain why, young Akash is sticking a marker up his ass? No? Okay. So I'm like, all right, I should probably keep some things up here updated, because people still, even now in 2022, people still find me through DeviantArt. I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, really? And I figured, like, okay, let me upload some things here. I think I've uploaded probably more work from like last year and this year, which is probably like 5 things that I have in like the last 7 years.
Yeah.
Because I left it because like once I got Instagram, I just posted all my work to Instagram.
Yeah.
I didn't fuck with DeviantArt, But I have to say though, as much as I shit on DeviantArt, which I have shit on DeviantArt plenty of times. One, if it wasn't for DeviantArt, I would not be talking to you right now, because DeviantArt is what got me to really push myself to be an artist. Okay. Because, you're talking, this is 2005. There are no smartphones, I believe, at the time, right? There's like nothing. There's like the BlackBerry, but there's no iPhone. There's no like apps you can like upload things to. And, being 21 years old and like wanting to be a comic book artist and wanting to push myself, like I had such drive, and really like the sad reality of me starting DeviantArt was actually out of spite. My friend, just checking my daughter, she made a sound, making sure she's not having nightmares about the Gruffalo. I should probably bring it down a bit. My friend was bragging about his friend going to SVA, School of Visual Arts in New York City. And I looked at this friend's portfolio and I said, this person is not good at all. Like, not good. Mm-hmm. As the kids would say, it was mid. It was very mid.
God,
that's a clip right there.
I do want to say mid, in our day, the only time I would say mid was like regarding the quality of marijuana.
Yeah, it was mid. But
anyway, back to your saying.
So, and I actually had an account on there previously, but I didn't post anything on there because I was still like DeviantArt in like 2004, 2005 was still primarily like a fan art website, and again, like it was actually much smaller and people were posting, average quality work. Some was good. Most of it was pretty terrible. And just looking at this person's portfolio was pissing me off to the point where I was like, fuck this person. I'm uploading my shit to DeviantArt because this person had an account on there. And looking at like the numbers of like likes and comments and page views, and I'm like, I can easily top this shit in like whatever time. So I started the account I have now in March of 2005. Because at that time, that's when I was applying to Marvel Comics and like really pushing myself with art, and like really, I had like that young drive, like to just conquer the fucking world.
Mm.
And I just remember pumping shit out. And I mean, shit was being pumped out. Like some things were good, some things were bad. But even back then, something like going through the history, I'm like, wow, I haven't posted in 5 months. I'm like, oh, some things just never change, do they? Things just never fucking change around here. But then I look at like my scraps and like things like I didn't post in the main gallery, and there's like tons of things there. I'm like, oh yeah, I'm producing lots of things, but I'm like, I'm not posting it because it's not done. And there's times or periods of like, there's like a new drawing posted like almost every other day or every week. And it was because of DeviantArt, I was able then to build up the confidence and actually the fan base to be honest, to go to conventions. Because like that's when I found out about like Baltimore Comic Con, and like the JP shows, up here, and started to go to them and bring my portfolio and start to befriend all these different artists, and like, oh, here's my DeviantArt account, and then like they would follow you back on DeviantArt and like give you advice on how to your drawings get better. And all you go into this show, oh yeah, I'll see you there. No, all right, no, it's fine. Like, yeah, keep working on this. And it's because of like that where I grew, So again, shit on it as much as you want. DeviantArt's the reason why like the artist Nick Mockoviak is actually here, because I was so persistent to chase that dream and just to get better and just post things and do like the free art trades, that you did because you didn't know any better, like because you're young, I was young and needed money, like, or like you did those things because you were nicer and I was nicer. I'm not anymore. Now I'm a greedy capitalist that just wants money to to pay for my pay for diapers and childcare. But that's besides the point though. But it's like I look at that version of myself. I'm like, I wish I had that drive still, And I mean, obviously things are very different for me back then than they are now. But I look, and there are some periods of that work where I go, man, I was on fire. There are some things where like, man, this shit really sucks. But that's just how it was. It was just, you were just pumping out work, and getting those dopamine hits from all the comments and the likes. And you're like, yeah, this is great. Yeah, this is great. And then have like the one person's like, yeah, you suck. You're like, oh, yeah, you're probably right, but fuck you anyway. Like, and just, and just having that whole experience, and honestly, like, because you are also hitting upon too of like wanting to have like your own little art community in Virginia, right?
Yeah.
Do you know how many times I have tried to start something here in person and online, and it's failed every single time? You know how frustrating that is? I mean, but I mean, I've tried with different circles of friends of like, okay, my college friends, we met for a while, then that fizzled out. Art friends, we did that for a while, that fizzled out. Online, we did that for a while, that fizzled out. And it's hard, especially now, with like, I guess like my situation, just having just a younger family, if my kids are older, it'd be different. It'd be like, all right, we're going to do drink and draw tonight or whatever. But, that's not really an option, especially, like if I'm the only one home. I can't just leave my daughter in the bed, in a crib by herself. I believe it's not socially acceptable, to leave your child at home when they're under 2. You can't really do that.
Yeah.
The dog's one thing, the kid's another thing. So, yeah. But yeah, I felt you on that. I'm like, oh yeah. I'm like, that hit too hard for me. That hit too hard. Because I know how that
able to
oh yeah,
be on the same wavelength on that.
Because I love going to like having like I love going. I hate teaching classes, but I love going to class and just sitting there and having that in-person experience and feeding off people's energy and getting ideas from people and like sharing knowledge and experience with other people in real time and in real life. There's not like, wow, this is great. It's no substitute for the real thing.
Yeah, exactly.
There's no substitute for like the first podcast we did. Like we were in person. Like there's no replacing that.
Yeah,
the good old days.
I know, and it's actually funny looking back at those days when literally just using my laptop to record everything. Oh
Yeah.
man. But
Figure out how to say gouache. What is it? Gouache? What the hell is this stuff?
gouache.
No one knows a gouache. What is this? It's fine. Whatever. It's okay. It's thicker
I'll
watercolor.
slip that back in this episode to let the the audience know what you're talking about. That was so embarrassing.
Yeah. What a throwback that was. I mean, you talk about that was almost 3 years ago. Can you believe that? It was January 2020, before the world ended.
Yeah, I had had another friend on recently, and I was like, he was my first guest, and I was like, dude, that was like right before fucking quarantine. It's wild.
I know.
Yeah, shit's crazy. But I mean,
Well,
the community, yeah, man, I'm kind of really starting to just come to terms, as as like you said, it's not the real, it's not going to be like the real thing, but I think that honestly, I think this is the community I'm building is on the podcast now,
which is fine, like however you can get it. I mean, I wish and strive to have something like this, but I know in my heart of hearts, I won't be able to commit to it for that long, or like as regular, because this is like your 140th episode.
Well, this one with you and me will be 136.
Dude, that's a fucking commitment right there. I don't think I can do like 6. I would do like 1 or 2 and then be like, no, I'm done. I'm out.
Because I mean, if I'm being honest, like so much shit goes on in my head, and sometimes I just need to like talk it out, whether it's with somebody or with myself. And like, I mean, obviously I'd prefer to talk to somebody, but then depending on the topic, it does turn into a therapy session, and I always feel bad when I put them in that position. So then I'll kind of take it upon myself and just go on my rants, but then I'm like, oh, who the fuck wants to hear me rant for like an hour and a half, which is, it's crazy because like I always try to like do shorter episodes, but I'm long-winded, so it's just, I just kind of like, you know what, fuck it. If it's gonna be an hour and a half, it's an hour and a half. People can always revisit, that's
hey, you're talking to one windbag to another, you talk a lot without saying a lot at all, so.
And I just like to get the feedback too, because like, I feel like I say it often on the podcast, like if I'm wrong, like I'm okay with being wrong, like call me out, I'll accept it, but I need to know.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a relief when you told me like, hey, we're on the same page with these topics. I was like, oh, good.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like I always I feel like I'm always writing, especially on social media.
Yeah.
Because I'm like,
I'll be honest, I got a little worried because you said the C word. I'm like, oh no, G, you're gonna sink the ship when you said you have conservative viewpoints. Like, no, you can't.
Wasn't the right word, but I don't.
That's what it is. But it's like there's no other way to say that.
Gotcha. Okay.
Like that you have like conservative points of view on certain topics, right? In art circles, that's like a fucking death knell. You might as well be nailed to a cross and left to die in the fields, because if you're not like this leftist pinky, socialist tree hugger, whatever, filling the stereotype here, and it's so odd because I know personal artists who are conservative and some are very conservative, but they'll never say it though, because they know that's professional suicide.
Yeah, and I've taken those.
They'll never say it. Like now, there are some that I know that are like more outspoken about it, and and some are like, you might want to dial that back a little bit. Like, not everyone likes Donald Trump. He's kind of an asshole, really. Like, it's okay. He really is an asshole. He does good things, but he's an asshole. Like he's a bad person, but whatever, like he's done good and bad things.
Yeah.
But
well, that's the thing. People will never like admit if like, because like, like you say, he's done something. He's done some good things, but no one's gonna ever want to admit that. And it's like, hey,
no. And it's like, look, like I'm not a fan of him. I honestly didn't think he'd really be a president. I thought it was a joke to begin with. And I'm like, oh, like he's running. Oh, like he won. Oh, this will be interesting.
Yeah.
You know,
And that's
I'm like,
definitely opened the doors for what's to come in the in the future, because it's like, oh, this fucking guy made it.
yeah,
You know,
maybe The Rock wins and he can just rock bottom people, you know, rock bottom some fucking terrorists
you
and
smell.
dictators.
You smell.
Yeah.
Oh shit! No,
But The
but
Rock's
yeah.
economy is cooking. Yeah, it's so you said that, I'm like, oh no, I'm like, oh God. I'm like,
I admit I have my
but
old I was conditioned a
you
certain
do.
way.
Right. Well, I wouldn't even say conditioned. You were raised a certain way.
Yes.
You have certain morals and beliefs, that you were raised with and instilled with, and you've decided to keep, into your adult life. And again, like being the milk toast fence sitter that I am, that if you haven't figured it out, I probably lean a little bit more conservative than liberal, but I don't consider myself a full-on conservative because those people are fucking crazy, nor a liberal because people are even crazier. Nor do I associate with any political party because they're both exactly the same. They're evil.
Yeah.
They're the same thing. All they do is just they appeal to one group, and then when that falls out of favor, we're going to appeal now to the other group. They have the same tactics. They have the same playbook. They do the exact same things. They play the same games. So like when conservatives will, for example, the virtue signaling that a lot of progressives are being accused of like, oh, look how great we are by having this, this wonderful, this black midget lesbian character in our story, right? And you'll have conservatives that will say, oh, look at this virtue signaling, like you don't even care about that group, right? But then they do the same thing. We're going, look how anti-woke we are. Look how great this is. When you're doing the same thing, asshole. You're just appealing to your group.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
It's very tribal.
Right. It's tribal. You're signaling to your group. And they both do it. They both play the same game. One wants to ban books that have, that have gay characters in it. The other one wants to ban books because, it says the word gay in it. Like they both have the same thing. They both do the exact same thing. Yeah. And people don't realize that, or like they're so entrenched in like their tribal beliefs, or even again, let's just say, for example, you say that you're pro-choice. Now all of a sudden you're a fucking communist snowflake, right? But now you say you're pro-life. Now you're a fucking, so you're a fascist Nazi, right? Like there's no in between. There's no gray. There's no common ground there. Like you have to be one extreme or the other extreme. Most people are going to find going to be a mixture of both, but nobody wants to hear that because that's too complicated. Going back before, they had to get involved and talk to people and actually understand where they come from. We don't want that. We want it to be superficial. We want to put you in the box. You better stay in the fucking box. Gee, you don't stay in the fucking box, you're in trouble.
Yeah. Which is so funny because I like when you, I don't know, let's say like anytime you meet someone new and like you start feeling a click, it's like, oh, this dude or this woman is like really cool, like we get along and blah blah blah. But once you get into the politics, it's like, oh, and it's like, it's just like, why do you have to get in, like why do you have to bring in the politics? Like
right.
When you don't talk about that shit, it's like it's clear that you can get along, you can coexist. It's okay to disagree, but
right,
man, nowadays it's like this or that, it's black or white.
Yeah, it's the nuances of everything, it's frustrating, like it really is, when you have like these issues and it's like for example, like if you could be pro-life but be also anti-gun at the same time because guns do kill people, which is not pro-life. It's like there's all these complex arguments to be made for it, but nobody wants to hear that kind of shit. Nobody actually wants to listen to each other. That's the problem. Nobody's listening to each other. We're arguing. We're talking down to each other. we're screaming at each other. We're not talking to one another.
Yeah,
we're not listening.
And it's
you know,
all
like
comments too.
And like, yeah, and like being a teacher, I don't have a choice in who I teach. Like, I'm Alice Allen. I take everybody. I don't give a shit what you are. I don't care if you identify as a fucking cactus. My job, even has like my building's union rep. My job isn't to like pick and choose the things. I represent everyone equally. Mm-hmm. That's my job. Even if I personally don't like you or don't agree with you on things, it's not my job. It's not my place. Yeah. My job is to make sure that you still have a job, that things are being followed, that your rights aren't being infringed upon or being abused. People don't understand that. People, they get so caught up with a little thing, or what do they call it? Microaggressions, right? It's like my friends, you need to go touch grass. Like you need to do something with your life. Go, get a hobby besides going on Twitter. And another thing that this pisses me off when we're talking about right now. little triggered here, but this pisses me off here, right? So I'm a somewhat grown-ass man with a full-time job and a 2-year-old, right? I'm not on Twitter posting every single hour on the hour. I barely use Twitter at this point. Like I what is this? I Twitter stalk, right? I just read shit.
Okay.
I don't post things because I'm like, oh, now I have to go make dinner. I have to go wash dishes. Now it's bedtime. Or I have to go do work, or I have to go vacuum, or I have to go food shopping, or my wife and I have to go to the doctor, or like we're going on for a walk. Like we're doing things, right? I'm living my life. Or actually, here's a rarity. I'm actually drawing and painting, right? Doing stuff, right? Who are these fucking people who claim to have kids and a family? They're on fucking Twitter, and I'm looking at their timeline. And they post like every fucking hour, sometimes multiple times, like 10 hours a day.
Yeah.
What are you doing? Stop ignoring your kids.
Yeah.
Go live your life. Or like the people who do like the fake activism, where like they'll post like the like the videos. It's like the TikTok videos basically like on Twitter or Facebook or Instagram. And it's just like all they're doing is just like reposting other videos and tweets of other people. I'm like, you're not doing actually anything. Like, if you want to do something, go do something. Don't fucking repost someone else's video that they posted on Twitter that they already posted on somewhere else. Like, go make a difference in people's lives. People, they don't want to do that. Like, for example, at school today, we did Patriot Day for 9/11 on Sunday. So this is September 9th, for those who are wondering, it was recorded. So I was a senior in September 11th. I remember the day perfectly clear. It was a Tuesday. I had just passed my driver's test for the third time a couple days before, because I failed it twice. The third time, the guy called me ma'am, and I laughed because I had my long hair, and he actually probably passed me because he misgendered me, which I could have been triggered about, but I thought it was funny because he saw me from the back and I had long hair. I didn't give a shit. I thought it was hysterical.
To be honest, we've done that too at some point, surely.
Yeah, I mean, maybe he thought I was sexy. I don't know. I was pretty a little bit of a looker back then. So
hey, you're right. So maybe you got a nice ass going on.
Well, no, you know what it is? It's the hair. It's really the curls. Dude, let me tell you, right? Let me tell you. Do you know how many times women have told me they're jealous of my hair? But I will say this though. The second I get the skullet, the hair goes. I'm going bald. I'm not going to be that guy. I can't be that guy. I can't. I'm lucky enough that, like, even though my forehead's going way back, the hair hides it enough. Okay. I still have a relatively full head of hair. It looks that way. Like, I have like a 5 head going on. So at least on the sides, but
Hey, what am I going to say? I'm fucking, I got this comb over looking. Because I'm like, 2.
But everyone, don't tell anyone that. It's only between just us.
No
So
on the internet say
yeah, don't say anything on the internet. So like 9/11 happens. I'm a senior in high school. All this shit's happening. Like I remember I could see the dust cloud from my house, because where I lived at the time in Edison, it's not that far from New York City. Like I could literally be like, I could be in Staten Island in 10 minutes. Southern end of Staten Island, but like Manhattan, as I say, as the crow flies, was not that far. So I could see that. And it was so surreal seeing that, and then watching TV and like watching some of the buildings fall. It was a very odd day. And I remember because of that, the school did a blood drive. And like later, like probably like around January, February, because, victims of 9/11, like needed blood. And I said, I'm healthy. Fuck it. Like, you got out of class. I'm like, all right, it's cool. But I've been a blood donor ever since because of that, and while I haven't been donating as much just because of like schedule, whatever, I'm still a very proud blood donor, and I would love to donate as much as I can, when I have the time to, it's making a difference. I don't brag about it. I don't put that in my fucking social media that I'm a blood donor. Right.
Yeah. I hate that shit when people,
it's like I do it because, or like I go and vote. Why? Because I'm a fucking adult and I vote. I don't need a sticker saying that I voted,
right,
or a stupid fucking post circle around my profile picture on Facebook saying that I voted. Why? Because I'm an adult. I'm supposed to vote. That's what you do. I don't brag about paying my bills. Why? I'm supposed to.
Yeah.
Or like raising my child. Why? I'm supposed to.
Yeah.
I don't understand this kind of stuff.
Well, that's the thing today.
This is the old man. This is the old man Nick coming out now. This is a 78-year-old coming out.
I'm with you though, because like, I'm sort of, I'm the same way. Like, it's like, why? It's like a flex, right? It's like, oh, I'm doing my part. I'm a good person. Blah blah blah. It's like if I know you, I already know that.
Right.
And if the people that you're connected with on social media, they should already know that too. You don't need to keep do that.
No.
Like I don't like, you don't see me posting online like, oh, I bought a homeless person, a liquid death drink and gave them some change and a protein bar because they were hungry. Like, but
I like the liquid death, in there. That was nice.
I don't have any on me. But I mean, I'll tell you right now, that's what I do here, because I'm in the city, so we see a lot of homeless people. But when they ask me, if I got any spare change, usually I don't, because I use my card. But I do go out of my way to get them, because I do try to support, reducing plastic pollution. I'll buy them a liquid death, and I actually do buy them a protein bar. At least. If I'm gonna support them in some way, at least I know where it's going towards.
Right.
And they need, they're probably fucking hungry. They don't need drugs. They need to get something to drink and food.
Right. Yeah. They need food.
But you don't see me like recording a video or like
right
selfie, like giving them the shit. Which, by the way, it's hilarious when I give them the liquid death, because they always, I'm sure they're probably, they don't see ads like on TV or anything, but they always like stare at it for a minute. I'm like, it's water, so like it's not a beer, because have liquor like the 7-Elevens and stuff.
Yeah,
they always like stare at it first, and I'm like, it's water. But
liquid death is mid.
but that's what I do. But you don't see me like fucking tune my horn on social media,
because you're a grown ass man that has a good heart and does what's right for people. Like, we don't eat food every year. Why? Because we can, because we have the means to help other people who are in need. You don't fucking brag about it. It's like, you know what? Gotta be humble about this kind of shit. I don't know. I guess
I will say, I think sometimes I do kind of feel like I'm doing that thing that the people do when it comes to like the fitness, but I always try to like just remind myself, like, I'm really trying to actually show this type of example to people that could actually use some, a little push to, if they want to get fit and healthy or whatever they're
right. But let's back up a minute here let's back up a moment here. You actually have the life experience of like being, not in the best of shape, right? Yeah. To actually doing the work, putting yourself in shape. So that's not a flex or whatever. That's like, look, I was at this point in my life. It sucked. I felt like shit. I switched it. Here I am now. Yeah. Like that's inspiration, So I guess call it calling it a flex of like I improved my life because I was, I wasn't in the best shape of my life.
Yeah.
It's like, no, it's like, yeah, like for example, like when I was 23, I had passed a kidney stone because at the time I had my only liquid intake was Coca-Cola and whatever spirits I could get my hands on. And then afterwards, I'm like, you know what? Water is my best friend. And ever since then, I make sure to always drink a lot of water. And honestly, cheap plug that I'm not going to get paid for, but like I have this Nalgene. I use Epic water filters. So like this is like it's tap water. They say like you have like for this filter to use tap water because it takes out all the shit from the water. And plus, like I'm not using plastic water water bottles or anything like that. This is the water bottle that I use. And even at school, like we have the green team, so we have like the water fountains that like refill the water bottles. So we're saving stuff on that. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I've had this for a year and I'm not dead yet, but like there's like little things, but I'm not bragging like, oh, look, I have this Nalgene OG Grande Epic water filter bottle. Like, no, I did it because I wanted a water bottle with a filter so I can use the tap water instead of like always draining the Brita filter, just like those little things. But, that's why we're not influencers. That's why we're still where we are.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to make sure I clip that about the you passing the stone from drinking lots of sodas and stuff, because I have a friend. I hope they're not still drinking Coca-Cola every day. But I'll tell you, when I used to work with them,
it's tough.
They drank was Coca-Cola.
It's tough.
Tag them in videos on like what it does to your stomach and all that shit.
Yeah.
At one point, they switched to they would always go to like some bodega, or not bodega, but they would always go to like this little mart and get the Coca-Cola from the specific location because it had like the natural sugar cane or whatever.
Which I will tell you, one, it tastes better, but two,
I'm sure it does.
It does, but also like it is just slightly healthier because it's cane sugar. It's not the high fructose corn syrup, but it's still not good.
But if you're drinking it every day, I'm sure it's still gonna do.
It does damage. But even like now, like I still try to convince myself that like Coke Zero is still better. It's not for you, but I always make sure like, okay, if I'm drinking Coke Zero, I have to make sure I drink 3 of these a day, of water. And even now, like I tend to drink Zevia, which is just it's stevia flavored water with cola flavoring in it with caffeine. I mean, it's soda. It doesn't taste that good, but you know what? It does the job. It does the same thing. Like I also like it too that it doesn't have like the color in it, so it feels cleaner. It tastes cleaner.
Well, for me, because I used to be heavy. I mean, you saw me when I was fat. I mean, I was drinking soda all the time, and for me, it was the carbonation. It was the bubbles. Like I just like that feeling, that refreshing feeling. So it was an easier switch to seltzers and sparkling water, just because I was still getting bubbly. And
you're getting bubbly.
And sure, it's not it's not tasty as a fountain drink, but whatever.
Whatever. So, and the other thing from the show that you were talking about, like doing the deep dive, because I think I mentioned that as a possible topic for like artwork, and you were going like deep into your away piece of like the inspiration thing for that. So, and it's funny because when you're talking about like what direction you want to go in with your art, you kind of fell into this just again serendipitous the way the universe moves and speaks to all of us. Like this summer, like I'm working like a dog, teaching all this other, teaching the kids ceramics and manga and whatever, and not really creating a lot of work. Like I did the American Robin thing for the charity, back in July. And I was thinking to myself, like, what do I want to do with my art? Because I honestly was at a point where I did not know what I wanted to do. Not that I'm like quitting birds, but I'm like, you know what? I have to do something different. Like not just, I want to do botanical art because it's nature. Like I have to do something completely different, because I went from like doing from the shows of like zombies and superheroes and monsters, and now doing like fucking like JJ Audubon birds and like botanical flowers, and like, well, that's quite the shift.
Yeah,
that's a little different. So the one thing I was thinking about, which I don't know how you feel about this, but one thing that really intrigues me is like redoing older pieces. And it really stems, let's see if I can get this thing up here.
Ooh, what's he pulling out here?
I can probably share it through Zoom, but whatever. So this painting here has been like the bane of my existence for the last 4 years, because conceptually it's solid. Technically it's terrible. So let's deep dive into this, my friends. See how this brain works here. So my favorite band is Metallica, and about 5 years ago there is a podcast that started called Metal Up Your Podcast by Clint Wells and Ethan Luck. They're two musicians from Nashville that have played in different types of bands: country bands, ska bands, reggae bands, metal bands, you name it. They're musicians for hire, but they love Metallica. And they started this podcast in 2007. And in 2008, they actually released an EP of cover songs of Metallica, but they weren't heavy metal covers. Like they would take the songs, but like rearrange them and perform them as like, maybe take a thrash song and make it an acoustic ballad, or make one a country song, or do like a reggae version of it, right? Because they had all this experience. So Clint reached out to me and said, "Hey, we know you're a great artist. Can you do the cover for our first EP?" And I said, "Sure." And I was like kind of tinkering with stuff. And he went on DeviantArt and he saw one drawing that I did 10 years prior. Because that's great. It's based off the song Side Night from the album Death Magnetic, where it talks about death. And one of the lyrics was I can't remember it offhand, but it dealt with like concrete angel and like wanting to be laid to rest, right? So it was like the image of a concrete angel's head being split open into the skull underneath it, right? Love the drawing. Just kind of did it for fun because I love the imagery from the lyrics. I'm like, this is fantastic, right? And Clint goes, "Oh, can we use that?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure." And you'll pay me for it? Fuck yeah, less work for me to do, right? So then later on in 2018, they did a second EP cover, and they asked me to do the work again. So I said, "Sure." And I was starting to have some problems with like conceptualizing the cover, because at first my goal was like, I want to put a bit of every song in the cover, which is like visual vomit. It just doesn't work, right? Because it's like, it's too much. It's too cluttered. It's a clusterfuck. Everything's a mess, right? So I'm like, okay, I have to back up here. So I don't know if your listeners are fans of Metallica or whatever, but let me give a little history lesson here. So 2018 was the 30th anniversary of their fourth album, Injustice for All, which has the song One on it, which is the song about anti-war, and it's it's their first music video, whatever. And the album cover is a statue of Lady Justice knocked over, breast exposed, but blindfolded, money covering the statue, cracks, it's weathered, it looks like, like the statue's been corrupted by money, right? So I'm like, okay, let me keep that in the back of my mind here of like, okay, not like the gratuitous of it, but like, okay, Injustice for All 30th anniversary kind of plays into it. So the other thing was their previous album, Master of Puppets. The album cover is very simple. It's the band's logo on the top third, and it's this field of like old like 1920s of like French style cemetery with the white crosses for for gravestones, with hands for puppets, because the song Master of Puppets is about drug control, about control, like control in general, but this was about drugs. So the Master of Puppets pulling your strings, the strings attached to the gravestones that they're dead because, the drugs or whatever. And the one gravestone had a soldier helmet and dog tag, because there's another song called Disposable Heroes, which is about soldiers being sent to war and just dying and then just being replaced because they're young and no one cares about them. They're just meant to die. They're disposable. So that album cover, I'm like, oh, it's only focused on 2 songs, not everyone, 2 songs. So I'm looking through the song list they had, and one of the songs was No Leaf Clover, which is about bad luck. And the other song was The Memory Remains, which is about faded fortune and fame from an old actress. I'm like, oh, there's a link here of like good luck and bad luck and good fortunes and bad fortunes. And then going back to the Injustice for All theme, there's a goddess called Lady Fortuna, the goddess of fortune, who is very similar to Lady Justice, where she's blindfolded and has a cornucopia, which is again this here. So the blindfold, who gets good luck and bad luck, is all randomly determined. And there's the vines here from from The Memory Remains, where the vines growing on an old mansion that's been abandoned because you don't live there anymore, and the cornucopia, instead of having harvest of fruits and gold, has a skull in there. I thought it was good at the time, the idea, but honestly, I fumbled on the concept of it and the execution of it. And to me, this is like a successful failure, to use Apollo 13 terms, where like it's technically not a bad illustration, but it's not what I wanted. I didn't have the skill set to do this at the time. I was looking for more. There's an artist called Richie Beckett who did posters for Metallica, Mastodon, Jimi Hendrix, and he uses this older, pen and ink style, more reminiscent of like the early 20th century. Okay. And that's what I wanted to do, but I didn't have the skill set for it. And I had pushed myself to do that work, but my hand couldn't produce what my mind could see. So I defaulted to what I knew, and I was rushing to get it done because they had a deadline to get it out to people, and I didn't want because I've been the reason why projects were late, and I fucking hate that feeling. So I just did it, and I'm like, oh, this is not good. Now, people like it. They're like, oh, this is great. This is good. Yeah. I'm like, thanks. So now I'm at a point where I feel I could do it, because I've been doing like more pen and ink work, more cross hatching stuff, and I feel like I have better control. So technically, I'm gonna murder this fucking piece now, right? But that got me thinking, because I'm like, all right, I want to redo some other things, just because it's interesting to see like how you grow as an artist and how you kind of how you think about things that maybe you did 5 years ago, 10 years ago, even a year ago. You're like, oh, I would probably do that now, do it differently, because now maybe I'm using watercolor, or I'm using oil paints, or I'm not gonna make fun of you, I'm using gouache, like, but, or I'm using mixed media, or like now I'm doing sculpture, or like now I'm doing printmaking, or I'm doing like, like whatever, like how would I approach it differently? So I'm going through my DeviantArt account, because that's the only way I can find all my old work. Because it's like, it's all in like sketchbooks and shit that's like all locked in the closet over here. Like I don't want to get into, because I'm like, it's too much work. But there's one that, as I'm going through it, I'm like, oh, this is what I want to go now with work. Many years ago, I really enjoyed doing what's called subvertisements. You know what those are?
No.
So subvertisements were, for a hot minute, a subgenre of what they call super flat art. Super flat art was really popular in Japan, I think in the 80s and 90s, where like the painting, it was very, they call it flat. So there wasn't shading or modulation or anything to it. It had a very kind of like cartoon manga feel to it, where the work looked very pristine, right? Very clean, very clean. Subvertisements, what they would do, they would take the visual language and cues of things like comic books and video games and movie posters, advertisements, and they would start to insert social messaging into them. And I love doing that kind of shit. Not just like social, but like emotional things too. Talking about, mental health, drug addiction, things like that. And I used to love doing things like that, because it's so fun to have that visual imagery of like having something that may look innocent on the surface, but it's like, oh, this is really dark. And I'm gonna see if I can share my favorite drawing here, which I don't know if I'll be able to, but I'm gonna give the old college try. So
do it up.
Yeah. So if I'm able to, what I'm going to show you is my favorite drawing I've ever done. And it's the only drawing, the only artwork I've ever made where it is better than what's in my head. And I don't know if for you as an artist, if that's like a mind fuck. It is.
I feel like you've mentioned.
I probably have. I don't know if you've ever seen it.
No, I never saw, but I feel like the last one-on-one together, I think you talked
mentioned
about
it. Yeah. This is where I don't know like how many people care about this shit, but this is all like the art talk here. This is what you want. This is what you're gonna get.
Well, this is exactly.
All right. So when I was at King University taking art education classes and like how to be an art teacher, we had the fall semester of 2007. The fall semester was your elementary, your K-5 lesson plans, and your spring semester was your secondary, your middle school and high school lesson plans. So in the fall of 2007, I was taking these classes. Now, mind you, at this time, I had already subbed for 2 years. I already taught lessons, like subbed, but like did long-term. So I was like teaching kids art. I had done summer camp, so I already knew a little bit of like how to actually teach. And with King University, with our art education program, we were already doing what's the SEL, the social emotional learning that's very popular now. We were doing that shit 15 years ago. So what they're talking about now, I'm like, this is all old news to us. All old news, right? Where instead of doing like when you had art, most likely, you did stuff that's called DVAE, discipline-based art education. So you would do things that are based off of skills, and you would mimic things that you would see. So for example, if you were studying Vincent van Gogh, looking at Starry Night, you would go, oh, I'm going to do a copy of Starry Night mimicking the brush strokes of Vincent van Gogh or the sunflowers or whatever. You would learn the technique, and then you would basically either copy that artwork or copy that technique. Mm-hmm. There was no heart to it. You were just a machine. And that was a reaction to the kind of the hippie movement of the 60s, where art was like experimental, because up until I'm getting fucking too deep into this. Fuck it, whatever. Right, so art was actually very important to a well-rounded American education, because people felt like you needed that. I know that's hard to believe nowadays, but like penmanship, for example, calligraphy, that was a class you had to actually take, which of course, I don't know. Hold on. I actually have one here. Like you have to take, your crow quill here and dip it into ink and actually know how to control it, how to control the pressure, press down to release a certain amount of ink on the paper, and also how to write in script too, because they felt like if you can do handwriting, that gave you an advantage in jobs. Because again, you're talking at a time when, I know this is hard for people to believe,
we didn't have all this technology.
There was no technology. I mean, like the most advanced thing you had was a fucking typewriter, Yeah. So what happened with a lot of this education was when the Russians launched Sputnik in 1957, all of a sudden American education shifted to math and science and technology. So the arts fell to the wayside. So in that time, from the late 50s to like the mid to late 70s, the arts were like a fucking free-for-all. It's like, all right, kids, here's a soda can, make art from it. Like no instruction to it. It was a mess. At least that's what I've been told. I don't actually know, but that's like the reaction, because then the DBAE system came in like I think the mid to late 70s, and that was predominant all the way up to about 10 years ago, where you would just copy, like you would learn a technique and copy the technique. You would learn an artist, copy the artist, because it focused and reined everything in. Our department head and professor believed in more like emotionally connected and invested artwork and more authentic learning. So he wanted pieces of work to have meaning to you, which is great, but you also need skill. Like, and that
we talked about this too.
Yeah, we have. So like, yep. So in that fall, we're doing our K 5 lessons, and we're using like bleeding tissue paper and bleach. I'm like, what the? No fucking 7-year-old. I'm not using bleach in a goddamn first grade class. No way in hell. Or like these so like abstract projects. I'm like, my brain couldn't wrap around it, because also at the same time, I'm posting on DeviantArt like fucking like drawings like monsters and like Spider-Man and whatever, getting all this like praise, and then I'm taking the art class in Kane, like how to teach art, and it's a goddamn mess. So the spring comes around, secondary, middle school, high school, I'm fucking pissed, because I'm like, these, like the work I did, like the lessons were fucking terrible. So actually I can see if I can find this here. So because there's actual like dialogue that I actually wrote for this. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but I remember the project here was okay. The project was to create artwork based off of like current events and headlines you would find in the newspaper, which newspapers, I know I'm not getting into newspapers, right? But it's like creating art based off of like the news, right? And I said, fuck it. I'm doing a triptych of vices in society, because you talk like having like iron focus and like laser focus. For the 2 weeks we had to work on this project, I ate, slept, breathed, and shit this project. And let me tell you, this is probably some of the best things I ever did. And what I was doing with this particular project was really borrowing things from visual culture, money, advertisements, and comic books in particular, to talk about things that people struggle with. So the first one was sex sells. So I made an airbrush, and they're all done the same size, 16 by 20 illustration board. The first one I did airbrush with cross-hatching India ink on top of it, of Betty Page, because I figured she was a sex symbol that people might know. I don't know if people know who Betty Page is these days, but it was designed in like the style of like an old dollar bill, like George Washington, Abraham Lincoln. But the designs around like the portrait were very what's vagina like. Okay. Whatever. It was meant to mimic, meant to mimic that, right? Somewhat subtly. Okay. So the drawing is, it's good. I'm probably going to go back and just kind of redo that for fun, just because I have better, like inking skills. So that was the first piece. That didn't take too long. The last piece was called Drowned. And do you remember the Absolute Vodka advertisements with the bottle, right?
No, but I can look it up real quick.
Yeah, look it up real quick.
Yeah,
because if you have that frame of reference, you know what I'm talking about then.
Okay, yeah.
So I did Drowned, talking about alcoholism, which is unfortunately something that I know quite a bit about, or have dealt with. So I did it in charcoal and actually ran out of time. And while it's not maybe the technically best of the three, it was because the charcoal just made it so stark. It was just like the silhouette of the bottle, and inside was just a person drowning inside. Like they're drowning in like the alcohol, just from like the battling it. The middle piece is the crown piece, and it's called Inhaling Cancer. And it was about smoking. And I did this in marker and ink. And I remember I completed the sex sells picture at home. I started Inhaling Cancer at home and I brought it to Kane. I remember putting my headphones on and listening to music and fucking ignoring everyone while I'm coloring this thing. And everyone in the class came over and went, holy shit. And this is at a time where I didn't ink the work beforehand. I colored it, I drew it, colored it, and then inked it. There was no ink on it. It was basically just a pencil and whatever Prismacolor I had put on it already. And people, the kids in my class were like, you have an axe to grind here. I'm like, yeah, I fucking do. And I was determined on this piece. So with this piece, I base it off of the old EC Comics cover layout. So EC Comics, for you youngins who don't know what the fuck it is, or just people who are ignorant of comics, EC was educational or entertaining comics from the 1940s and 50s. They were well known in the 50s for their horror comics. The Tales from the Crypt actually came from EC Comics.
Oh shit! Tales from the Crypt.
Yeah, Tales from the Crypt. The Haunt of Fear. Crime suspense stories. All these like graphic horror comics, which is why we have the Comic Code Authority came from EC Comics. So that visual layout, I'm like, okay, this is like deep shit, but like, okay, this represents horror. Smoking is horrible for you. It will kill you. That might have been lost on people. It probably was lost on everyone who saw it, but I'm like, fuck it. It's for me. I don't care. So the layout like had like the upper third was the title, and Inhaling Cancer with like the decrepit writing to it. The left-hand side said death, and then the lower 2/3 was this girl who just looks just horror, like how she had like a mouth opening from her head and like a pus thing. Let me see if I can send. I'm gonna send this to you so you can actually see this thing.
Yeah.
Because without you seeing this, you're probably like, "What the fuck are you talking about?"
If I have like a blank look on my face, I'm trying to visualize it myself. I will say is while you're doing that, I will say, I
There we go.
a couple of years ago, I reconnected with my art teacher from elementary school. Okay, and I will say it was because of what we were talking about art, and I don't know specifically, but he said something that was so profound and it stuck with me. And granted, I probably took it out of context, but he was saying along the lines of, and he wasn't saying it directly to me. I think we were just talking about like, like the meaning of art and stuff like that, like why artists produce the art they do, whatever. And he basically says like, he was like, he's like, if you got nothing to say, shut the fuck up. Now I wish I knew exactly what he was pertaining to.
Right.
But
right.
I mean, when he said that, because like, this was at the time where I was still doing a lot of fan art, comic books, cartoons, and all that. So
right.
I was kind of on that brink of like, I want to create meaningful art.
Right.
But it's a matter of like, what do I want to say? And I want to say that was sort of his response, and for other artists that are on that trail, and
right.
just fucking stuck with me, which kind of led me to doing the Tech Utopia stuff.
Yeah. So, I just sent it to you. So
oh, okay.
So like, yeah. So like this is prime Nick. This is like so like when I say this is the best thing ever made, this is 16 by 20 on illustration board. This is a big drawing. Originally, the girl who's the centerpiece was like a manga face, but I as I was like doing research, I found a picture by John Baisley, who also is the singer for Baroness, who does a lot of illustration, very much in the vein of Puzzhead, who's one of my favorite artists, who I thought it was Puzzhead drawing at first. And I'm like, that's what I want. Like this, like the girl's look is so blasé, like she doesn't give a shit that she's fucking dying, and has like a monster face, coming from her head, has like open, open, like fucking like pus on her face and whatever. And just like the whole thing of like the top is red, the bottom is green, so there's complementary colors, and like the circles of like emphysema and Death and Grim Reaper with the eyes, and just like that kind of like that triangular composition, and just those things were so, I didn't even think about them, I just did them naturally, but it worked out. And then even like having like the green background with like the ash look, the smoke look, that was done with a China marker to get that texture, right? And then like adding in the ink work. And let me tell you, G, I brought in all three of these pictures. I'll send you the other two just so you can see them. I'll send them to you now. Like this is, like I said, like this is like peak. And this is where like, when I was looking at this, I'm like, I love doing this kind of shit. I love playing with that visual language and just like, and what I also like to, when creating work like this, is creating like these like really strong imagery, but not preaching to you. Like, I don't give a shit if you smoke or not. I don't give a fuck if you do or not, right? I want to create something that sparks a conversation, but also gets you to go like, damn, that's a good drawing. Like, for example, one of my favorite artists is Greg Ruth. And when Roe versus Wade was overturned, he had a drawing made of, it was two hands bounded like this, wrapped in a hanger, a coat hanger, right? Mm-hmm. So for those who don't know, like people used to get abortions using coat hangers. And I looked at that drawing and I'm like, God, that is such a fucking great idea. And it's so well done. And I don't care how you feel about abortions or whatever, that gets you thinking and talking.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of like what I would like to get back into. So, I mean, I also did a drawing, which actually started all of this, called Ignorance is Bliss, where it was a girl, like a cartoon girl, like looking like this, and it's all airbrush skulls in the background with like a wilted flower. It's very rudimentary, but the concept was there. And then I did another one called He Loves Me, which is which I'll send you to. It's so bad, but it's about abuse. And it's this girl, it's horrifying you think about it, but it's like people stay in abusive relationships because he loves me, she loves me. So you stay there. Let me send you the other two first, so you actually know what, so you have a reference with this triptych. So like this triptych, I brought it to school like when it was all done, and the class was like, yeah, this is why you're the best in the class, like hands down. Like you're not just the best artist, the best teachers, like give up the explanation with everything. And people were like genuinely surprised, and has a epilogue to this whole story here. The inhaling cancer that you saw, that was put into 2 shows, I think that year or the following year in 2009. And they got 2 very different reactions. So the one show, I believe, was in Kane University for, I think, the art educators of New Jersey. It's an older crowd.
Okay.
They had no idea what the fuck they were looking at. They were stunned, disgusted, horrified, but really like amazed of like, this is a good drawing. I don't know what to think about this. This is like, because it wasn't like, oh, here's a sunset. Here's a bird. Ironically, there's a bird on a branch. Here's like my granddaughter. Here's a rotting fucking face smoking on a comic cover. Going, what the hell is this thing? Right?
Yeah.
So people were just confused about that. So that was the one show. That was in like the late spring. I was invited by Middlesex County College, where I went previously to get my associate's degree, for an alumni show, for alumni art show. So I brought the inhaling cancer with me, put in the show. Well, guess whose piece was the most popular piece there?
Whose?
I wonder who.
Huh.
Because it's funny, because the professor who was there, who was like running and organizing the show, we did not get along.
Ooh.
But she complimented me a lot because it was so well done, and the kids were like, "Oh, this," because they were getting all the themes. They're like, "Oh, like it looked fucking cool," which it does, and it's so well done. There's like a lot of thought to it, and kids were. This is what blows my mind. Kids were writing reports about that drawing, about like smoking and like whatever, and I mean, I had people like, no one wanted to buy it because, again, who wants to hang that in their house?
Graphic.
So yeah, it's very graphic. It's right there in your face.
Yeah.
But which, another funny story, my wife wanted to hang it up in the house. I'm like, Karen, no one wants to fucking see that in the house. I'm like, it's actually in the closet. It's still in the frame. I'm like, no one wants to see that in the house. Because she loved that drawing. She loved it. But it's like, I'm like, that's maybe a little too intense. Let's bring it down a little bit, So, but just like that, those 2 vastly different reactions to the same thing, but had the common core of like, it's a really well done drawing, but the one side's like, I don't know what to think about it. The other side's like, this is really fucking cool.
Yeah.
So that's like where I'm kind of am right now. Like, I would love, and I actually have a couple ideas that I've been working on and kind of tinkering on, talking about, things that are going on right now in society without really passing judgment, saying like, you're right or you're wrong. It's just like, this is what's going on. You decide, right? But circling back to what we said earlier, there's a little bit of a problem of like, well, people Google me.
So
It starts to get a little iffy of like, also too, it's like for the last couple of years, I've been the bird man.
he's like, I understand birds. He's like, I actually identify as Godzilla / birds.
Man, I've been Coco Beware. Here's a couple birds, nature, and what the fuck is inhaling cancer? What the hell is this? This is all different. And I have struggled with this concept for 10 years now of separating church and state. Of like, my interests are a little too varied now. So I'm making the decision, and I'll tell you off the air because I don't want to say anything here now. But I've decided to start basically like a separate brand that's going to be more this stuff. Now, I'm going to have some things bleed over into my regular like Nick Mockoviak world.
Yeah.
But some of the other things are going to be more to this. And, I already know the name of it and whatever, but I've also thought too of like, not only is it good to kind of, because again, I don't want parents Googling me and it's like, oh my God, what? I'm getting phone calls in from my principal of like, what the hell are you posting online about this kind of crazy shit? Because again, because I teach all, people of all different backgrounds, ethnicities, and, political leanings. You don't want to piss people off and be accused of like holding down someone because you have opposing views. I don't need that. I don't need that kind of headache.
Yeah.
So I'm like, other artists can get away with it. And I'm like, maybe 10 years ago I could have, but I'm like, now at this point where I am, it's hard to be like, well, yeah, I can kind of see like, yeah, it's still doing the birds and like the superhero stuff, but like what I want to do now, it has to be different. It has to be separate, So, and the other thing too, that I was really thinking about this week that kind of gets me excited is starting from scratch. When I did DeviantArt, I had nothing. There was no Instagram. There was no Facebook. There was no Twitter. It was me and my art. And that was it. And I am fiercely proud of what I built on DeviantArt because that was from nothing.
Yeah.
I posted my ass off and made sure I was hitting, like posting as much as I could. And I built that fan base from scratch, like posting, commenting, replying back, favoring like the old school way, like just doing that, and having a post, like having that separate account that I don't plan on linking to me at all of like, this is what I'm doing, but I'm not telling you it's me, and just seeing like how people respond to it and building it organically, seeing how that goes, seeing if that can be done. Because again, like now everyone's got, Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, whatever other things are out there. But just to be like, here's this thing, I'm putting it out there and build it from scratch, see where it goes.
I think that's a great idea, actually. And I'm seeing this thing now with Instagram. Now, I don't know exactly how it operates. I'm just noticing some artists now or at least Instagram has this new feature where like you can have subscribers. So I don't know if that means like the subscribers, like if you can have exclusive content. Like it sounds like it's kind of like turning like Patreon a little bit. I'm wondering with this subscription feature with Instagram, if you'd be able to
do that. Sure, but I just want that separation. I want something completely different, like
I respect that.
Because again, like that's still like, tapping into that. Yeah. You just want that separation,
Yeah, I feel you.
And like, I've struggled with it for such a long time of like, yeah, I want to do something different, and I had, I even talked to Rick about this a couple of times too, and it was kind of like, yeah, but I really like this year. I'm like, all right, I'm creating an imprint of myself that I'm just going to, post the things of artwork. And again, whenever this starts, I have no idea when it's going to start. Maybe it starts tomorrow, which no, it's not, you know, but, you know, I'm not going to make an announcement about it. I'm just going to start posting his account. I'm still going to keep my other stuff going with like the birds and monsters and things like that, but I'm not giving up on that. But some of the stuff that I know that's going to like piss people off, or like maybe, you know, maybe not fit into, you know, the demographic that I've attracted over the last couple of years. I'm like, yeah, this is where this is going to go.
Yeah.
You know, this is where we're going to stay. You know, maybe there might be a crossover here and there, but more or less I want to keep it separated.
Yeah.
You know, because I feel like for me, it's just kind of more of my better interest to do, but it's also like I was like thinking this week, I'm like, oh, like I get to start over again. That's actually exciting.
Yeah.
Where I get to start as a new as like a new person without really that baggage, and just seeing how far I can go. You know, because again, like now you start an Instagram or whatever, you already have like your followers from Facebook or Twitter or whatever.
Right.
But if you're just a fucking schlub nobody, how far can you go with the algorithm and you know, everything else? So I'm like, oh, that's kind of cool. So yeah, it really is.
Am I not gonna be able to see this stuff?
No, like I said, once this is over, I'll tell you what it's going to be called, and I'll link it up. But I mean,
no, I'm excited, man, and it's nice to hear that. Because like I feel like we, you know, as artists sometimes we get, you know, like we get attached, like, you know, the people that, you know, follow our work, you know, they tend, you know, to attach us to that specific type of work, because, you know, we've been doing it for, you know, for a long time, and
yeah,
nice to kind of break away from that, and you know, perhaps to work on something that is more true to yourself.
Yeah,
because we've been kind of like pleasing our supporters and our fans, like, you know.
Yeah, or even just like doing things just for yourself. I mean, fuck everyone else. You're just doing it for yourself.
It's nice to be able to do that. It's freeing. But I really to revisit the you know, these pieces that you sent me that you were talking about.
Yeah,
I mean, it's very true, right? Like the messaging, everything about it is so graphic.
Yeah,
but
it's in your face.
And whether you like that style, the you know, whatever, you can't deny the skill level. And I think that's something I've been not, I don't know. I've always had this thing with like, I always feel like an asshole because like when I follow other artists, and nowadays it's all like about niche and like,
right. Which I've fallen into too. Yeah.
I don't know what's the nicest. I can't find a nice way to put it.
Then don't make it nice. Just fucking say it.
Well, I've had this discussion with another artist, but there's a lot of artists that just kind of go in intuitively with no skill set. Now, that's not to say that what they produce isn't eye appealing. It's not beautiful. Like I know a lot of artists that produce beautiful work because of you know, whether the subject matter or even just simply as color palettes. But you know, if you know, and then this is like in you know, if you know their history, right? And like I know some of these artists that have no artistic background, and I kind of have this not bitterness. Yeah, I guess it's bitterness. Because it's like, you know, like you and I, we come from an educational background in the arts. I mean, you have a lot more educational background than I do. I really have been, I fucked off during my years, but I, you know, thankfully I've been able to
recover. Yeah. I mean, so, you're an inspiration to meet. I'm like, oh, there's G drawing again. Fuck it. I have to start doing more work.
I mean, like, I don't want to boast, but like, yeah, I guess I have some skill. But to see these other artists kind of just like go in and, you know, again, like almost zero, you know, educational background or any just like, I don't know, just no background at all of like, yeah, I've only been doing this for like a couple of years. And it's like, I mean, that's cool. Like if that's how you feel when you're painting, like, all right, but it's just like, I don't know. I just have like this weird, like, I'll admit too, like there's some artists that I tend to be a little jealous of because they've gained this exposure through opportunity or in like people they've met. And I know them. I'm like, motherfucker, like you've only been doing this for so long. And
Mhm.
like I have a degree in animation. Like I had to take classes for anatomy and drawing and all this. And like I don't want to, but it's just like one of those weird things I tend to kind of like always battle in my head. I'm like,
We all do, but I'll counter that though. So, well, here's the thing. Going back to what I was saying, ignorance is truly bliss, because when I was taking a painting class 10 years ago with my friend and her sister, my friend is also an art teacher, right? We're taking this painting class, and this gentleman who was actually painting next to us would just intuitively just fucking just do these paintings, bang these fucking paintings out. And like my friend and I were spending our time like fucking throwing things away and redoing things. And we're marveling at this gentleman because he is just going for the fucking throat. He's going for it. He's doing it. And I feel like the more skill and knowledge you have, it slows you down more, because now you're like, well, do I do it this way? Do I put this here? Do I do it in this style? Do I use this technique? Do I use this method? And this motherfucker over here is fucking murdering canvas after canvas after canvas. You're just like, I wish I had that kind of like that childlike innocence. And meanwhile, he's looking at us going, I wish I had your skill. We're like, we need to have this kind of in between, this kind of middle ground. Oh, God forbid. Oh, look at that. Middle ground comes back up again. Like having that kind of like bridge, where you have like skill, but also intuition, and maybe that comes with like the reps of like, okay, like you just do something every day, multiple times a day. So like you start to the, process of elimination, or whatever it is. But yeah, like, oh, believe me, I've been to many Comic Cons where I'm like, I'll look at someone's, you walk around when it's slow, you walk around the show, you look at someone's table, and you're like
looking through their work,
their portfolio, their folder, the prints, and you're like, how the fuck is this asshole here again? And then you see like and talk about their sales, and they're like, wait, you sold what? You did what? How many? And this is where, and again, I'm always the asshole when it comes to this part here. But yes, we're both assholes, no doubt about it. But I'm gonna sound more like I'm gonna be the conceited asshole here, which I will admit to. When I go to these shows and I start getting very jealous of like these people selling like all their prints and doing commissions and like they're making money, and I'm like wallowing my misery of like not making as much or whatever, I remember to myself, I'm like, I have a full-time job with health benefits, a pension, a 403b, a steady paycheck, and then I look at everyone else. And like, this is like, they have to do this. They have to fucking sell all that. Yeah. So I'm like, it puts that back in perspective. I'm like, well, hey, you know what? Good for you. Fuck yeah. Right on. I'm proud. Like, I'm happy for you. Like that shifted for me very quickly when I started to realize, because again, like educators were all very bitter. I mean, you just want to get the hell out of the field. But then like, going into illustration or art or whatever, I'm like, I know that reality of like how hard it actually is to make a living, especially if you're a no name like you or I, like we're not a big name like Adam Hughes or Frank Cho or Mike Mignola or whoever, where we can go and make 30,000-40,000 34,000 grand a show, plus whatever gigs you're getting from Marvel, DC, or whoever else. So it's all perspective. So like, I used to bring me down a lot when I would go to shows, and I'm not selling, I'm not, again, also why I'm not doing really a lot of shows, because again, it's costing me money that I don't have to really, why am I spending that, but it's that reality of like, I don't need to, because, financially I'm comfortable and I'm set, and I don't have to worry about that. And I have to be mindful of that when I'm like looking at this other person who's like very happy to sell like 5-10 prints, and I'm like, you know what? Good. Yeah, good for you. Or even like that fucking douchebag that you really don't fucking like 3 booths down, that's like making a killing. I'm like, that's their job. This is what they're doing.
Yeah.
So you start to put that more in perspective, and you're like, you know what? Good for you.
Yeah.
I can't keep carrying this fucking hate around, this anger around, because we're all in different places.
Yeah.
Yes, I would love to make my table back. In fact, I think the bare minimum of anyone at each show is to make your table. That's it. You make your table, you've got it made. And then everything else is gravy. Like making a profit has like a schlub like us. That's a goddamn bonus. That's a blessing. That's a blessing. Covering tables, all that matters. You cover table, you're good.
Yep.
But I mean, the last couple of years that I was doing shows that I had to pay for, I wasn't covering table at all.
Oh my God.
That's the reality. I mean, I would have people come and be like, your work looks really good, but they ain't throwing down money for it. And I had to realize, like, you know what? Yeah, it pisses me off. And, there were times where I was so frustrated where actually, true story, I did Monster Mania in Cherry Hill, New Jersey, a couple of years ago. I actually drove home in tears. I was crying out like a little bitch. I was crying because I sold nothing on Friday and Saturday. I drove home. I sold nothing. And I spent a lot of money to get a table there.
Yeah, them shits are not cheap.
No, not cheap. And unlike the monster guy, like I got Godzilla and Frankenstein and Dracula. And of course, what sold? Captain America punching Hitler in the face.
Like a classic.
The classic. That's what sold, right? At a fucking horror convention.
Yeah.
But I mean, yeah, I was so frustrated and angry and upset. But now look at it and I'm like, you know what? Yeah, I had the right to be, but you know what? At the end of the day, I still got paid the following week for my job.
Yeah.
I still had my health benefits. I still had blah, blah, blah. Where I know most people there, like that's what they're making their prints and like their craft soaps and their bootleg DVDs and their t-shirts and their designer toys and they're all that. And you have to look at that and like, you know what? Good for you. I'm happy for you. And like that takes it takes a lot to just swallow your pride and be like, you know what? Good for you. I'm happy for you. Absolutely. Things are shitty for me, but I'm happy for you. And actually, I have to pee, so I'll just pause it right here real quick.
Are those the ones that have like caffeine in them too, or are they just?
No, it's just
soda water.
It's just sparkling water, and what I like about liquid
Tell me.
comes from the Alps, and with every purchase, 10% will go towards plastic pollution. Death to plastic, murder your thirst, and help the environment. Liquid death.
Apologies for that. I had my Tom Hanks A League of Their Own moment there. Oh, the power of editing. So yeah, like we're going with these shows of like, isn't it better to lift people up than to bring them down? Right? Like you want to bring people up, instead of like just. And I never understood artists who like don't share secrets with each other or whatever. It's like in particular with like techniques. I'm like, I can reverse engineer your drawing and I know like what you're doing. But I'm not going to tell my secret. I'm like, you're using like acrylic on top of your watercolor. Yeah. You can kind of tell what they're doing.
Yeah.
But like when you're like at these shows or whatever, it's like, don't you want to help other people out? Like, don't you want to like lift the whole community up?
Absolutely. I mean, you helped me out during my beginnings. I remember you helping me out with, well, I feel like this is always a thing, like pricing, because I used to be fucking terrible. But I remember you were like, you gave me a little pep talk. I'm like, hey, you just kind of like told me how, how to go about it moving forward.
Right.
It's go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say like you just in everything that you learn, then maybe you adjust things as you go along. You learn more things. like your thought process changes or whatever. Like you want to share that with people because like we all were that we all were that guy or that girl. We all were that person. It was their first show. You didn't have anything.
Mhm.
So like I love talking to those people versus like me, who's like a burnt out schmuck asshole who fucking thinks he knows everything, right? I'll talk to like the people who like did their first show. It's their first show, their second show. It's like, oh, you're wet behind the ears. You have no experience, but let me tell you, like, here's some things. Here's like the good, the bad, the ugly, and everything in between.
Yeah.
It's like, here's what you can do. Like, maximize your success here, because again, like, maybe that's why I'm a teacher. So it's like the teacher in me or whatever, to like help you to bring you up to like the best you can. It's like, yeah, like even like not just your pricing, but your presentation or even like your material, whatever it is, like you want to be able to help other people to make them better. So then like that gets passed on, because again, like we want to build this whole community. We want to make this better for everyone. For all of us artists, because let's face it, when we're going to shows, we're not the main attraction. We're like the sideshow.
Yeah,
we have to help each other out. Like we're all the same. We're all in this together. Like the more experience, the more knowledge you share with each other. Even on like what's called, even what's people like, say this is very gauche, which is like it's not proper to talk about like how much money you made, your profit margin or whatever. But that's important to know, because the more you get into this, you want to figure out like, okay, if I'm going to a show, it's going to cost me X for a table, but I have to travel. So then I'm paying, for tolls and gas and then food and hotel. I'm making prints. I'm buying like material for it. Like, where do you define like your profit margin of like, if I'm making prints just for this show, or making prints for like the next 5 shows, and how much should I then charge for like this, because I've made this many prints, but I'm bringing, it's all that kind of minutia stuff that no one really wants to talk about. It's like, yeah, I'll sit down and talk to you about it, because John and I, we were those assholes that were like, yeah, let's figure this shit out. That's why we would always go together and split the cost. And that's why we were making profit, because we split the table and the hotel and the food and the gas and the tolls and, whatever else had to come our way, People, I don't know. Maybe that's more old school mentality, like being, I don't know. I don't see that as much. I see people being more insular, more protective, and more like, yeah, go fuck off. Like, okay, fine. All right.
yeah,
whatever you do you.
I feel like everyone's kind of like really just honed in on their own shit. Like they're just so focused on what they're doing. I do want to say, I feel like I need to clear this up. It's like, I'm not proud of when I have those moments, those thoughts. So, and I was, about like bitterness and all that. Like, because I've had those conversations that really like with some of those artists, and it really had like, I'm glad that you pointed out with the whole, putting things in perspective, because I have had those conversations with some of those artists, and kind of like, I'm like, oh, like knowing like how they do things, and then they would kind of, I'd be like jealous of them for this and that and the other. But then when we have a conversation, and then they they'll be like, oh, but like, dude, like your work is so detailed, yada yada yada, and I'm like, okay, I didn't know you thought about that. I didn't know you felt that way. So it kind of like it it helped me. It brought me back down to like, all right, everything's cool. Like it's not all in just in my head, But yeah, I just wanted to clarify that, because I'm never proud of like, putting that out there.
No,
I always sound like an asshole.
No one is. Like, believe me, like that's the ugly inside of all of us. We're like, it's that resentment, because like even like now, like I still have that of like the romanticized version of the artist, and here I am, teaching, like looking at 7-year-olds, fucking rolling on the floor, like this is my job. But also I look at it, I'm like, it's not too bad. Like I said, everything it gets put into perspective, and when it comes to the teaching thing, for the longest time, and this is 100% me, I resented being a teacher because I always wanted to be an illustrator. I always wanted to be a cartoonist. So teaching was like the plan B, art was the plan A, and that switched. And my mentality didn't switch. I was very immature about it. And for a very long time, up until 4 years ago, I was very angry about my job, not because of the kids, but because of me. Because I'm like, why the fuck am I doing this shit? I remember there's this student that completely flipped and changed my mentality, and I realized then, like, what I cared about as a teacher, it doesn't fucking matter, because I was always concerned about my reputation as an artist in my teaching, which is 100% wrong. Because if you're being taught by Mr. Mockoviak, you should have a certain skill set because I'm Mr. Mockoviak. I have, the art skills and blah, 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 blah. Very me oriented, right? Wrong mentality, 100%. So this fifth grader, I'm not gonna name them. I'm not gonna name them. Quiet kid, good student, good artist. Wouldn't say the best, but like pleasure to have in class. And I remember this week of school, the last week was a Monday to Friday. So we ended on a Friday for this particular school year. And this fifth grader started to get very because the student's last class was Monday with me, because with elementary, we have art 1 day a week. So I saw the student on Monday, like third class, and signed the yearbook, gave them a hug, whatever. And every day the student was more emotional. Every day the student would see me, or like the student would come down with another student, like, oh, I'm escorting, Johnny to help sign your yearbook, and was getting more and more emotional every week, or every day rather. And it was Friday. I had afternoon bus room duty, which for anyone who's had that, God bless you. It's fucking terrible. It's probably one of the worst things you'll ever have. When the student's bus was dismissed, and I happened to be like right there, like helping, like dismissing them, the student was like, I had kids come up to me like, Mr. Mockoviak, this student is like crying really bad, like really like rivers of tears. And I said, like, what's the matter? And the student was like, I'm never going to see you again. To me, I'm like, no, you'll see me. Like, this is not a goodbye. This is I'll see you later. Like that cliched shit, right? And just embrace the student and said, like, you'll be okay. I will be in touch, and I will see you later. You take care. Have a great year going into middle school. And that was the moment. That was the switch for me of like that emotional connection. Decided just completely switched me. And then knowing that I was going to become a father and realizing none of this shit really matters. I was so concerned about dumb shit, like craftsmanship and like my ego of like the kids have to be this certain skill set. Kids are kids. They're all coming from different experiences. Some will only draw in art class during the week, and that's it. Others have fucking private tutors they see 2 or 3 times a week. I learned like it's you, the connective tissue, that's what matters. And I've had kids that come back to me that are in high school, college now, which now makes me feel, this is where old man comes in. I feel old now. Like I have college kids. They go, you're my favorite teacher because like you were honest, you told the truth, you were funny, but I connected with them. And that's where that's where I am now. Of like, you know what? Complementary colors are nice to know, but fuck it. That's not really important. or like what type of lines there are, or like what variety is, or like how to shade with a pencil. Like those are like, yes, that's what I have to do as an art teacher. But when you make those meaningful connections, and those in education, especially with someone like me who teaches hundreds of kids every year, you're not going to connect to everyone. You're not going to connect to most students, actually. That's the truth. Like, you're just another asshole they see for 45 minutes a week. That's who you are. Like, you're another teacher they see, right? But now, because I've been at the same school for so many years, and I've seen now so many brothers and sisters and cousins, and now these kids are now in college and high school, and I'm like, oh, you got to see Mr. Mockoviak. I'm like the rites of passage now. You know, and you start to think very differently about how you approach things. And then now, like, especially now, like being a father, and I started thinking to myself, do I want my daughter to have me as a teacher? And then my first answer was no, I don't. How do I change that? And but you know, that starts to really you start thinking more about that now. How you approach people. You know, just like, yeah, like, I don't want to be like the overburdening person who makes your kid cry because they can't color with a fucking blue crayon. I'm like, you know what? Yeah, it looks fine. Looks great. Hey, pay for you. It's fine. You know, it's very different, you know, because you start caring about different things. You know, and again, I'm not saying like you can't do that with no kids and kids. Like, it's just my personal experience. You know, like being this very arrogant, conceited artist that I was, and feeling that I was like king shit and whatever, and then having like this 10-year-old like change your complete job, and then when you become a parent, that changes even more. You look at things very differently. You go, you know what? The things that I cared about, you know, 10 years ago, they don't matter. You know, because 100% these kids that remember me can't tell you a fucking thing about art. But they will tell me stories about, oh, I remember when you were telling us about dinosaurs fighting, you know, Optimus Prime and blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, what? Sure, I believe it because I don't remember that. So
yeah,
you don't know that the impact you have on people. So over the last, you know, 4 or 5 years, I've been much more cognizant about that, of like my approach to people, especially, you know, these kids, because again, now having one of my own, you know, another one on the way, like, yeah, I need to be mindful of that. Because I'm going to be that parent, you know, talking to a teacher about my kid, you know, and just seeing how they are. And in the parent conferences that I've had over the last, you know, 11, 12 years, 95% have been very, very positive, which I don't know how that works out. I don't know how that was, but, you know, I'm likable, apparently. This misanthropic, curmudgeon old man apparently is likable. I don't know how that worked out, G. You tell me.
Hey,
It's got to be the hair, right? It's the hair. Just
maybe it's magical, bro.
they don't want to misgender me.
Nah, that's really inspirational, man. I love that.
Yeah. Well, it's just, it comes again. That comes with experience, which we were going back with before. Like, you have to live that. You know, you just can't put, you know, your metaverse glasses on and experience and just pretend that. Like,
Yeah.
Like when you have an actual impact, and again, like even over the summer, when I was doing the enrichment program, and there were a couple of the high school senior or like juniors and seniors that were helping out. One of the kids, you know, was one of my old students.
Nice.
And the student said, "Wait, Mr. Mockoviak, you're teaching classes here?" I said, "Yes, I am." And that student was with me every single day.
Oh shit.
And that student said, like, you are my favorite teacher, which I said, well, you say that to everyone, all your teachers. And that student said, no, I'm actually very, like, I'm very serious about it. Like, you're like my favorite teacher. Like, one of the reasons why I want to go into teaching, which my response was, you might want to rethink that. Because I said, because teaching's not what it was. Because honestly, teaching's not what it was. But but it was nice to have that. It's so refreshing to have a conversation with someone. Like, this student was actually like wise beyond their years. It was like talking to someone my own age, who was half my age. So it was like very refreshing, and just have that conversation and to learn, from that student of like things that I should do. I'm like, oh, that's a good idea. I should probably do that. It's like I'm old, but I'm not closed off to new ideas. Like, if you tell me something that's gonna be good, I'll listen to it. I'm like, oh yeah, that sounds great. I'll do it. I'll look into it. I'll probably forget because then I'll have, because then my daughter's having nightmares about the fucking Gruffalo. But it is what it is. But yeah,
I never want to say no to new ideas. Every time someone tries to suggest something, I'm like, yeah, I'll think about it.
Yeah, exactly. I'll think about it, and then you might do it.
You might not.
You're probably not. And you're like, yeah, it sounds good. But then like 6 months later, you're like, oh, that's actually a really good idea. And then like the good ideas you said yes right away to, then you're like, that was a really bad idea. That was a poor choice.
Dude, seriously. No, man, that's so true. But damn, hey, that's awesome, man. I like hearing that.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, and who knows? Maybe they will be teaching. Maybe they'll stick through it.
I mean,
time will tell.
Time will tell. We'll see.
Yeah.
But it is what it is.
Damn.
I don't know.
Fuck, man. Well,
it's the beard. It's just inspiration.
Oh my god. So you think if you grow it out more wisdom?
Right? No, because then you become hobo-ish, and then it degrades too much. This is like the perfect length here.
Like looking at your facial and then seeing the Zoom screen keep switching back. I'm like, oh man, I gotta trim my shit.
Yeah.
Dude, we're 2.5 hours in, which
Yeah.
To be honest, it didn't feel like that. I have my timer going on, so that I'm that way I'm kind of aware of like the time, like how much time we're spending here. And we were like, the one time when I looked at it, we were like 1.5 hours in, and it didn't even feel like it was crazy. Like,
right.
Like, it feels like I can see 2 hours, but I'm like 2.5 hours. I'm like, shit, that's kind of quick. Was there anything? Is there anything else that you wanted to touch on?
I mean, I don't know. I mean, I have other, because like I'm looking at the time, and like not that I should be getting a bit because like tomorrow's Saturday, I can sleep in. But I mean, I don't know. I'm not, because then there's like, because we all saw Doctor Strange. Did you see Doctor Strange yet?
Yeah, I did.
I'm not. It is mid. It is mid. I'll just keep this very brief about this. I'm not a fan of the MCU right now. It's
kind of lacking right now, huh?
It seems like it's so directionless right now. I kind of wish after Endgame it just kind of ended. Again, I haven't seen a lot of the like the Disney Plus series. I saw WandaVision, which I liked, but I'm like, all right. WandaVision was good.
I'm thinking maybe it feels that way with MCU because they're now expanding with the series, like, doing the Disney Plus series. So maybe that's why the films feel diluted somehow.
Well, I feel like it's directionless, because I feel like they want their cake and eat it too, of like, they kind of want to repeat the phase 1 success where like they weren't exactly interconnected in the beginning because you didn't really know until you saw the Incredible Hulk when like Tony Stark came in at the end, right? And everyone like, oh my god, what the fuck is this? Like, I don't know, dude. I don't know if you, because I remember seeing Iron Man and Hulk in the theaters when they came out in 2008, and I remember when it was announced like that this was the MCU. And Robert Downey Jr. was Iron Man, we were like, that is perfect casting. Like, pitch perfect. Which I still feel to this day, I will die on this hill. Iron Man is still the best MCU movie. You can fight me on it. It sets the tone. It's perfect. It hits everything. Everything else has been like a watered down carbon copy because now the humor from that was the humor that came because that was unintentionally a very funny movie.
Yeah.
Where now it's like everyone's got to
really
be quirky and fucking sneaky. And like it's a formula.
Yeah. No, I definitely see that.
Right. And then it just
I hope they don't do that with the X-Men. Honestly, I don't want the X-Men to be fucking humorous. That's because I really do love the X-Men. The comics. I was much more of a fan of the comics. I always say I'm a forgiving fan. I'll find something to enjoy out of like even the terrible movies. But at least the movies, they weren't so it still had like a semi-serious tone to it.
Yeah, but then like I'll tell you what did it for me. I saw Black Widow last year. I'm like, this movie's terrible.
Yeah.
That killed it for me. I'm like, I don't want to watch Eternals. I don't want to watch Shang-Chi. I don't want to watch any of this shit.
Yeah, that one was like a lot. Yeah, I mean,
was it mid? Just say it was mid. It was mid. Don't cap me now.
So you're saying Iron Man slaps, huh? It still slaps.
It slaps hard. Iron Man slaps super hard. I mean, basically from like Iron Man to Endgame, even the worst movie, which most people say was Thor 2 and Age of Ultron, are worst? Still really. That's what they consider, right? That's what they consider it. Thor 2 and Age of Ultron. Oh, Ant-Man movies are just Ant-Man's just kind of there, like whatever. Yeah. No one gives a fuck about Ant-Man.
I can think of other ones though that are worse.
Right, but most fans would say Thor 2: The Dark World and Age of Ultron are like the two worst movies in like what I call like the first era of the MCU, right. And even those movies are really good comparative speaking, right? So it's that sliding scale, but you would gladly take Thor 2 and Age of Ultron over whatever else they're giving us now, where it just feels soulless and I don't like. It's hard. Now, granted, I love Spider-Man. I have not seen any of the Disney Spider-Man movies, but I've heard they're really good.
Okay.
But I will tell you though, I was burnt out from watching the Tobey Maguire movies. I didn't see Andrew Garfield because I'm like it rebooted too fast, and Spider-Man 3 was like it left that kind of like I don't know about this, so I wasn't quick to get back into Spider-Man right away.
Okay,
but
fair enough.
Hey, I've heard they're really good. I heard what's the last one? No Way Home. Right, that's the one that came out with like Doctor Strange and all them, right? I heard that was fantastic. I'm like, I would love to see that, but I want to see the other two movies first.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I mean, I really enjoyed it because
the one critique because like I don't want to get too long in the tooth and all this. What I liked about the first era of phase 1, 2, and 3 was each movie was self-contained, but it contained elements of the overarching story. Where like you didn't, I didn't watch the Ant-Man movies because fuck, who cares about Ant-Man, right? I saw them later on, but I didn't see them when they came out. But I didn't feel lost when I watched like Infinity War.
I see what you're saying.
And Endgame. now with phase 4, with all the Disney Plus movies and all the TV shows, I just say, and the movies that are out, they're falling into the same tropes that the comics fell into in the 90s, where like you had to read all the stories to understand the main story. It's homework. I told like my mom is the most casual fan you will meet of, and she loves like the Marvel shit. She's like, you gotta watch Eternals. I'm like, this movie sucks.
I never even saw that yet.
I saw the last hour of it. I wasn't impressed, but like I will.
I heard it.
For my mom, I'll watch it because she's pestered me for like the last year to watch it, so I'll watch it and then tell her it sucks. But like I'll watch it though, with a somewhat open mind. And I told her, I'm like, Mom, before you watch, because we saw Doctor Strange in the Multitude of Madness. I'm like, you have to watch WandaVision. She's like, what? I'm like, yeah, you have to watch WandaVision because that's a sequel. Because Doctor Strange 2 is actually a sequel to WandaVision and not a sequel to Doctor Strange. She doesn't understand that. And then she's like, yeah, I would try to watch WandaVision, and I couldn't watch it. I had to watch it like 3 times to understand it. I'm like, yep, that's. And then I saw Doctor Strange 2. And such good ideas, fucking trampled on. I mean, you had a whole multiverse to use, and the idea, it's like if you have the whole concept of a multiverse is that it's all different. Like in some universes, there's no Doctor Strange. In some he's a fucking mouse. In some he's fucking. An African living in Australia, named Brother Voodoo or whatever, and then there's like the parallel universes, which is what they're probably doing, where there's similar Doctor Stranges, but they're all different. That's a more parallel universes versus like the multiverse, where like there's a universe where there's no Stephen Strange, or Stephen Strange lives in like Victorian times, or he lives in the future, or he's a fucking dinosaur. Like you could have played with that, but no.
Have you seen Into the Spider-Verse?
I have not.
Okay.
Damn. I've heard much about it. I've heard about it though. So
I don't want to
spoil it. I don't give a shit.
Well,
it's Miles Morales and Spider-Gwen and all of them. Yeah. So
I was just gonna say that I feel like that movie kind of in the concept of a multiverse, I feel like I don't want to say they did it right, but I think they did it in a way that we kind of hope that the MCU movies would do it. Because in Spider-Verse, you had the Spider-Man Noir, you had you had all different versions that were really like almost like completely different versions of themselves. Right. You had the Spider-Pig, right? And
Peter Porker, Spider-Ham. I love Spider-Ham.
I'm sorry, Spider-Ham. Yeah. And so I think in that in that respect, like you would kind of hope they would sort of do that with the MCU, but it's all just like kind of like you said, all parallel characters that kind of live the same path but different end results.
Yeah,
it's not it's kind of like a repeat.
Lazy writing.
Yeah, I will say. I mean, I think you're right because like this last phase, like. When I'm going into the movies, I just try to be as open-minded as possible. And I even break it down to the point where it's like, all right, was it at least like entertaining? And all I can say,
go ahead.
It had a lot of them really haven't been that entertaining. But I mean, if I were to say anything positive really about the Doctor Strange 2 is that it was better than Thor Love and Thunder,
which I haven't seen, but like I saw like a little bit.
I wanted to like it, man, because I really do like Taika Waititi. I love his work. Like I'm a fan of What We Do in the Shadows. What was it? Jojo Rabbit. I can go on, but this one was definitely a miss. Like I just remember watching it through, and I'm like, it doesn't feel right. Like there's something's missing for sure. And I'm like, but it's Taika Waititi. But I'm also thinking maybe because there's so much humor. Like we all know him for his humor, so it's like
I think that's what happened. I think that's unfortunately that's the bad. Like that's the unfortunate side effect of Iron Man.
Yeah.
in those early MCU movies where the humor was a byproduct and more unintentional, or it was more situational and it was relevant, right?
Right. It
Where
wasn't
now
forced.
it wasn't forced. Now it's forced. Now it's like, all right, you got to do beat joke, beat joke.
Yeah. And on top of that, now you, like you said, it's homework. Now you gotta like fucking be the first. Like I didn't watch the Hawkeye show.
I didn't watch
I didn't watch Eternals.
anything. Yeah.
Like there's a bunch of stuff I didn't watch, and like
I
we're watching She-Hulk now, and it's
I want to watch She-Hulk because I like the Dan Slott run that I was reading, like years ago. But what I've seen, oh my god, I'm like, how can you make such an unlikable character? And again, here's the thing: you have this character like with such a built-in story of just like a lawyer who's frumpy looking for the most part, not confident in herself, hunted down by the mob, right? Gets into an accident. I forgot like how her actual origin story, but it's like an accident shot, and Bruce Banner then has to like do a blood transfer, and she becomes a She-Hulk. And she actually likes being the She-Hulk because it gives her confidence. She's now sexy, she's cool, whatever. And here it's like men are bad.
Yeah, and that's a yeah, right. And God forbid, like if we're talking about it, because this show is written by was directed by a woman, so we're probably sound like fucking
misogynist. But now, mind you, you're Filipino. You are a person of color. I am the devil, so nothing what I say really matters. So keep that in mind. Yeah, perfectly aware of my privilege, quote unquote. But it's like you're making this character so unlikable and then just contradictory because the one of the big controversies, if you want to call it that, was like twerk with Megan Thee Stallion, right? So, and it's like people are like, Stan Lee is rolling in his grave. First of all, Stan Lee would like that scene, would probably be twerking with them, to be honest with you. Stan Lee. The problem that scene has isn't the twerking, whatever. It's just that it goes against the character that's established in the show, where the first episode she's talking to Bruce Banner, whose father killed their mother, tried to kill Bruce. Bruce has tried to commit suicide several times, and she's saying how like being catcalled, being catcalled, by evil misogynistic, men, mansplained to, and degraded upon, makes her angry, and that's why she's better than Bruce at controlling her anger of these things. Meanwhile, Bruce has been shot in the face with bullets by aliens, and as Thanos, it has fucking Thanos like embarrassed him to the point where the Hulk doesn't come out anymore.
Yeah.
Let's ignore that fact.
Right.
Let's just go with this thing. So you're saying that like, Jen Walters doesn't like to be what's the word I'm looking for? It's escaping me right now. Not personified, but Come on, G. You're good with the words.
I'm bad with words, bro.
That was the joke.
New merch coming soon.
Like she, she's, she doesn't like the fact that like she's been made to be like this object of affection,
maybe.
Not reluctant, but like she's been like made this like object of affection. She's been kind of like reduced down to just physical attributes, right? Of like being a woman with like, like I have boobs and vagina and whatever. Yeah. She doesn't, doesn't like that fact. Like, oh, like I'm getting catcalled for my looks, but then 2 episodes later, she's doing a twerk, which is by its nature sexually suggestive.
Yeah.
So I think that's really the problem. It's inconsistency with the character of like, you want this character to be, a feminist character, which nothing wrong with that inherently. But then like you're doing things that then oppose that. But it's like, well, this is woman empowerment. But then you said like, I don't want objectified is what I was looking for. She's objectified object. She's objectified for being a woman with like having mammary glands and and not and having the pee sitting down, right? So it's like
almost contradictory.
It is. It's like, dude, just pick one thing, pick a side, pick one thing and stick with it. I think that's the main problem that people have, is that the writing is inconsistent with the character from episode to episode.
Yeah.
Don't even get me started with Doctor Strange, from movie to movie, how he is such a bitch. But that's a whole other discussion, which we can't really get into right now. Yeah. But I mean, yeah. Other than that, with like the MCU, I still want to love it, but it's like it's passed me by, and I accept that if it's passed me by.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine. You know what? That's fine. It's okay. I accept it.
The last thing I'm gonna say is I think it's like funny, and I don't know, maybe I'm just looking at it from a weird angle, but it's like, there's all this like women empowerment, going on, but which is great, like but at the same time, I feel like maybe it's just the people, the fans, but like I feel like they're in maybe like they have good intentions, but in a way, I feel like they're still like creating this division between people.
Right. You know what it is? It's the Andrew Tate effect. Where you don't like the messenger, but the message will get out there. And I feel like with the this phase 4 and whatever, this rebuild of the MCU, people do feel that it's female centric. Nothing wrong with that. I don't particularly give a shit. It's just the characters feel hollow. The justifications for their actions, their stories, they feel vapid. They don't feel like there's no weight attached to it. Again, go back to Iron Man, the OG, 2008. Tony Stark inherits this company from his father. He's a tech genius, builds weapons that destroy and kill people, destroy countries, land. Here he is in a foreign land, displaying his, the military might that he's made his fortune off of. And then he sees that the enemy
is actually
using his technology. Holy shit, what a fucking, what a moment there of like morality. And that whole thing dictates his whole moral compass for the rest of the MCU. Where, he's a misogynistic asshole. He's a billionaire playboy. He's a tech genius. But then at Endgame, he's the one that makes a sacrifice to make sure that Thanos is defeated. The 114 million that Doctor Strange saw. Because he has the one to be holding the blade, right? So the character growth and development. And again, it's hard to, it's a little bit harder, but it's like you have a TV show that runs between, 4 and 8 hours, depending on how long an episode is. That's what, 2 to 4 movies?
Yeah.
And then with Doctor Strange, of like making, Wanda the villain and having just such, again, just superficial reasoning instead of this gradual change of like having the dark hole kind of corrupt her and whatever. She's like just is evil right away. It's like,
yeah,
it doesn't work. It's just, I don't know. I feel like, and I remember hearing this years ago. Correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm usually wrong about this kind of stuff. But I believe after Endgame, with Phase 4 and forward, it was supposed to be more cosmic. And they're gonna have James Gunn come on to be like Kevin Feige's like second hand of like kind of corralling all the stories and whatever, because it would be like Galaxy, like Guardians of the Galaxy, the Nova Corps, and then we'll get actual real Galactus and the Silver Surfer, and the real Eternals and like the Watchers and all this like much like wider galaxy spanning things. But then James Gunn posted a thing about whatever years ago, and he got fired, and he made the Suicide Squad, and they now it's all a mess. It's like you can have these characters, there's nothing wrong with having a social message to it, as long as your story trumps or is mixing with the message. I don't remember where I heard this from, but audiences are forgiving. If your whole thing, your book, your TV show, your movie, whatever, is like 90% story and 10% message, they'll go along with it, no problem. But if it's the inverse, they're gonna push back big time. And I'm not saying the MCU is that inverse of like 90-10, but you start to see a lot more of that. And just this kind of just empty, vapid, hollow, short-sighted writing with these characters that have 40, 50, 60 years of fucking stories that you can pull from. Yeah. And you can't do that. It's troublesome, and that's why I like the Phase 4, 5, and 6, where it's like, oh, it's like Secret War and like blah blah blah. I'm like, I don't give a shit. I don't fucking care. I don't care one bit
of the thought of them getting to the Secret Wars, but I'm like, I don't
care. I don't give. I don't give a shit
now.
I don't give a fuck. I give no fucks about it. So
yeah,
whatever.
That's amen to that.
Yeah.
Well, fuck, man. Well, we're just about close to 3 hours.
I believe this is time where we just go. We're done.
Yep. All right. Well, before we bring it home, do you have any last words for our audience? Anything motivational, inspirational?
Well, as long if you're an artist who's listening to this show, just keep practicing your craft, but also don't be afraid to diversify. Learn different crafts. If you're an illustrator, learn how to do printmaking. Learn how to paint in watercolor or oils. Do collaging. If you're a realist artist, do abstract work. If you're an abstract artist, do cartooning. Grow your visual vocabulary. Learn your skills. Learn your craft. Look to your past. Look to the inspirations. Look to your favorite artists, but look who inspired them, because you will learn a lot about why your favorite artists made the work they did, and that might inspire you to do something different. And there's nothing wrong with making a buck and doing popular work and fan art. There's nothing wrong with that. I've made a career out of it. Nothing wrong with it. Don't be afraid to explore on your own, and just keep pushing yourself. Just because you're not ready for something now doesn't mean you're not going to be ready for it 6 months or a year from now. Believe in yourself. Keep pushing yourself to be better. And understand that you are going to fail at things. You're going to fall behind on it. That's part of the journey. Don't give up on it. Keep pushing. We need artists. We need people who do great things, weird things, different things, comforting things. There's room for everybody at the table. Please join us. There's plenty for everyone to share.
Well fucking said. Heck shit. And that's why Nick Mockoviak is going to run for president in 29. No, that was fucking well said, brother.
Thank you.
I'm gonna clip that. Yeah. So, yeah. Anyone out there listening or watching, yeah, I really hope you were able to resonate with all the gems that we shared here, and yeah, please be sure to check out the show notes. Follow my boy Nick here. Follow, subscribe on podcast and YouTube. Ring that bell, and yeah, stay safe, stay aware, stay healthy, and you know what? Create something. And we will catch you guys on the next one. Peace out.
Peace.